All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you are new. Thank you guys so much for joining me today and joining Boss as well. Hopefully he won't be too chaotic today. I'm giving him another chance. We're going to see how he does. If I have to escort him out of the room, then I will, but hopefully he will be good today. But appreciate you guys waiting patiently for the intro to finish up there. Always try to give it a little bit of time. Let people kind of file in. And got some stray cat hair there. Boss is unamused. He is unamused. Yeah. He's very serious right now. He's very serious. Yeah, I agree. He's got this kind of look on his face like I can feel him staring at me, man. I can just feel it. I can feel his glare. Yeah. John Brooks says, greetings from Ireland. Greetings. Thank you for being here, John. William saying MBG, me, wakes up. Is it September yet? No. Goes back into hibernation. People are not ready. Yeah, so today what we're going to talk about is the current situation with PlayStation and their games, specifically new games, even more specifically new IP. Okay? I think this is a conversation we have to have because a lot of people seem to either A, be confused about what's going on, or B, just not seeing things, like not seeing the bigger picture. So we're going to talk about that. And we have OK coming in, dropping a single membership gift to start the day off. OK, thank you so much for that, buddy. Appreciate all the support you've been showing the channel. And appreciate you getting us started today. So let me add that to the counter. And so, yeah, just to kind of give you guys a preface, my title reads PS5 sequels, remakes, and remasters, but what about new IP? Now, obviously, on my thumbnail, I had to kind of change it a little bit. On the thumbnail, I'm saying, where are the new PS5 games? But I just want to clarify right up front that when I say new PS5 games, I am specifically talking about new intellectual properties. I'm talking brand new PlayStation games, okay? I feel it's important for me to make this clarification because I don't want people to misunderstand or misinterpret that when I say, where are the new PS5 games, I believe we've gotten a lot of new games this generation so far. I don't want to make it seem like games like God of War Ragnarok don't count because they're a sequel, or games like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart are just pointless because it's a sequel to a known franchise. I do want to make it very clear that Sony has released a lot of new games, and that will obviously be part of this discussion. And I just want to make this clarification right up front because I've been seeing this kind of, I guess you could say, focus the past couple of years on PlayStation, where it is that, right? It's nothing but sequels, it's nothing but remakes, it's nothing but remasters. And so when I hear people say that, like, my interpretation of it is, so you're wondering where like the brand new games are, right? Like the brand new IP. And I feel like they don't word it that way. Like a lot of these people, they don't say I want new IP, or I want a new AAA IP from so and so. They just kind of word it in one way, which is, well, here's what we're getting, and I'm not interested in what we're getting. So what I thought I could do today is attempt to kind of answer this question, right? I don't know if I'm going to do it successfully or not. We'll find out. But I'm going to try to answer the question, where are the new PS5 games? And we're going to go really in depth over the course of this stream, where we're going to dive deep into all of the studios that are working on new IP. There's a freaking gnat in front of me. And we're going to obviously speculate what that IP could be. And by the end of this stream, or maybe it'll be more towards the middle, it's hard to say. It's hard to kind of like, figure out the trajectory of a stream. But essentially, my goal is at some point over the course of this stream, we're going to come to a just solid, conclusive answer of like, okay, where are the new PlayStation 5 games? Here's where they are. And everybody will be on the same page. So when people ask that question, or when people, only talk about one aspect of PlayStation, you will know that, well, there's a little bit more to it than that. And, I think it's just a good time to have this conversation because I feel like right now, Sony is being very quiet, which is normal. It's July. I don't think anybody's necessarily expecting the biggest PlayStation news to drop in July. And so they are being pretty quiet. They do have a lineup of games for the remainder of the year. But as they are kind of, chilling in the background and not necessarily making a bunch of noise right now, there are a lot of conversations popping up where people are kind of focused on these questions, right? So it should make for a pretty good discussion overall. At least I think it will. So I hope you guys do end up enjoying it. But listen, before we dive into this discussion, as more people are filing in, I just want to let you guys know a couple of ways you can help support the content, help support the community, and help support the channel. First off, I just want to thank everybody once again. If you're tuned in live, thank you guys so much. I know a lot of you guys are here pretty much every stream, and a lot of you guys try to make it live. Appreciate that, obviously. Just want to make sure I give a shout out to those who maybe can't make the streams live, but watch them later on. I do very much appreciate that as well. Hitting the like button, okay? If you want to help the channel out, if the only thing you can do to help the channel is hitting that like button, please do so. We're already at about 75 likes, which is great to see. It helps more than you know, and it really does kind of help get these streams out in front of new people so we can continue to hopefully grow the community. 3 ways you can support the channel directly. This is also very important because without the direct support of this community, without the direct support of you guys, I simply wouldn't be able to do these streams the way in which I do them and have these conversations and run this channel. So the first way is become a channel member. You gain access to exclusive perks. You gain access to the members lounge. You gain access to exclusive gameplay streams. And we do quite a bit of that here on the channel. So please consider becoming a member. If you are already a member, the second way is you can gift memberships like OK has done here and many other channel members do, or community members. Really goes a long way in helping the community out by giving out those memberships, but also supporting me directly. And last but not least, consider donating a super chat. You can ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. So I know most of you guys know this, but it's important that I just continue to emphasize this because as I have always said and will continue to say as long as it's true, you guys are the sponsors of the channel. So thank you so much for all of the support and the kindness. But with that being said, I want to start this conversation by just prefacing, I guess, trying to add context to it, right? Like, why is this a conversation? Well, simply put, this is a conversation because Sony has been seemingly not too keen on revealing their new IP for one reason or another. And we have Big MP coming in, dropping a 5-bomb on you guys, following up OK's single gift here. So Big MP, big shout out to you, man. So Paul says humongous MP. We could call him that, humongous MP, but really appreciate the 5-bomb, dude. You never know with this guy. But yeah, he's a big supporter of the channel, big supporter of the community.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good stuff, bro. Good stuff. Yeah, humongous MP. You think he wants to be called that? Was that a character in Mad Max? William says, MBG, they are saving everything for the September showcase, which will be better than the Xbox showcase. We will see, William. We will see. But to preface this, right? Why are so many people seemingly so frustrated with PlayStation? Why are so many people feeling like PlayStation is not really responding in the way that some people feel that they should? Where are the games? Sony, where are the games? This is the broadest question being asked. Not by everybody, obviously, not by everybody, but by a lot of people. William wants to put money on it. He says, I'll put money on it, $1,000. I mean, I agree. William, I want to make it clear. I agree with you. I feel like I would lose $1,000 if I were to make that bet. I do think there's going to be a showcase in September. Just to be clear. I mean, if we think about what we know about PlayStation right now, right? We know the entirety of 2024, and we know a little bit. And that's the key right there. We know a little bit beyond that. So if we look at the remainder of 2024, we have Concord coming up. We have Astrobot coming up. We have Until Dawn Remake coming up. We have Silent Hill 2, although that's not a PlayStation first-party studio, so we'll just kind of put that to the side. And so Sony has games ready to go to cover the remainder of this year. But if we look beyond that, what do we know about 2025? What do we know potentially about 2026? There are really only two games that we know of. Death Stranding 2, as well as Wolverine. Two very big games, certainly. I don't think anybody can argue that these are going to be big games. But when you think about the bigger picture, it is ultimately two games. And what you immediately notice is, a lot of studios are missing. That's Insomniac once again, and Kojima Productions, which isn't even a first-party PlayStation studio. We have Capono 5150 coming in, keeping the membership train going today, dropping a single gift for us, bringing us up to 7 members on the day. Let me add that to the counter here. Capono, thank you so much for that, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So just a quick reminder before we continue the conversation. You guys know how it goes. If we do end up hitting 25 members today, 25 is the minimum goal. Obviously, we strive to go beyond that. But if we do at least hit 25, we'll feed the beast here. We have GLP Gamer, a member for 1 month. He says, it would be interesting to know what games we'd have if it wasn't for Jim's pivot to live service. Well, this is what I think is interesting about this conversation, is there does seem to be this belief, and I think it's a pretty it's understandable why people would believe this theory. There's this kind of theory that there was a big pivot to live service. It didn't really work out the way Sony thought it would. And because of that, a lot of their studios are in turmoil or were in turmoil, and they had to, like you said, pivot away from that. And now they're like just getting off the ground. I don't think that's the case. I think it is for maybe a couple of studios potentially, and we'll go over that, like which studios I'm referring to. But I don't think it's that simple. I don't think Sony truly went all in on live service games in the way that some people believe they did. Like when we say all in, what I mean is a huge investment and a huge push, but not everything. Right? I think when some people hear the terms all in, they take it very literally, like no more single player, like no studios are developing single player, like every one of their studios is now just a live service studio. That was never the case. That was never going to be the case. And it's important to understand that, because it's not to say that there weren't problems. There obviously were problems, and they had to sort those problems out. But if you think of like the studios that we're waiting to hear from, how many of those studios are we just not going to hear from anytime soon because it turns out they were making a live service game this whole time and not working on a single player game? Probably not as many as you would think, truthfully. Because as I've always said, Sony is not stupid. They know where their bread and butter lies. They know that if you want to get a piece of the live service pie, you cannot do so by sacrificing what is already making you your money. A lot of money, for that matter. All of your money. So they knew that you can't go 100% all in. You're saying it was 40% at the time? Yeah, I do think Sony maybe spread themselves a little too thin, truthfully, with the live service push. And I think that was part of the plan in a way where it's like, well, let's just throw as many things at the wall and see what sticks. But I think they greatly underestimated the strain that could potentially put on just the entire management system, essentially, just because it's not an easy endeavor. I think that they knew when they made that investment, because think about it. It's like if they said, listen, 40% of what we're working on is live service, surely they knew not every game they're working on is going to work out. Some games are going to flop or get canceled and not progress. They knew this. So I guess really if you think about it, when we talk about throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, sometimes I interpreted that as they're going to develop and release these games, and then if they flop, they'll be done with it. No, they're going to develop these games, and whatever games are not coming together and whatever games are not hitting certain milestones, those are the ones that are going to get canceled. And we threw it at the wall and it didn't stick. Concord, in a way, you could say a game like Concord stuck because it didn't get canceled. It was the opposite. Not only did it not get canceled, they said, we're going to buy the studio. I'm going a little bit too far in the live service direction, but I do think when we're trying to preface this conversation and answer this question, it is important to acknowledge, what's been going on the past couple of years when it comes to PlayStation Studios and, overall investment and like where the investments are being made and where the money's flowing, stuff like that. And there's no denying that live service has been a big part of that. And it's been, I feel like so far it's been a success simply due to Helldivers 2. But, there's no denying, you look at something like Naughty Dog and The Last of Us multiplayer, the canceled Spider-Man multiplayer game, the canceled Twisted Metal game. It's clear that a lot of this, and Sony London as well, getting shut down, a lot of this stuff was not successful. Brandon, you're saying MBG were missing information. Sony really did hurt themselves going all in for live service games. Now they are 2 to 3 years behind. See, that's I cannot say you're wrong because I don't know for sure. But what I can say is I'm pretty sure that's not true. And the reason why I say this is because I need it to be understood that the level of mismanagement that would be required to achieve that would be staggering. Now, I think when we are talking about Sony Studios being behind, and the reason why they're behind is because they invested too heavily into live service, the first studio that pops in my mind is obviously Naughty Dog. We know it's not Sony London because they're gone now. We know it's not Firesprite because they had a second game in development this entire time that didn't get canceled, and that game is actually a single-player game. We know it's not Insomniac because Insomniac is working on Wolverine and apparently a Venom game. The real question is Naughty Dog. And so here's the logic that I want people to try to understand here is if we look at the studios whose games did not work out, live service games, that is, if we count those studios and we ask, okay, well, what else were they doing? You realize that they were all working on other projects while they were also working on these live service endeavors. And see, this is where I try to explain to people that it seems clear to me that the strategy this entire time from PlayStation was we're going to buy a couple of studios that are just dedicated live service studios. Haven, Firewalk, and they're going to be dedicated live service. But when it comes to our established bigger studios like Guerrilla, like Naughty Dog, like Insomniac, I guess you could even, they did purchase Firesprite, but they're a huge studio. They were already previously part of Sony. It's a bit complicated, but it seems clear to me that the whole idea was, look, we are going to, with our established studios, not ask them to go all in with live service, but take a portion of their development team and work on something live service and see if they can get something off the ground. And I think the furthest we saw that go was with Naughty Dog. And we have DJ coming in, keeping the membership train rolling today, dropping another single membership gift. DJ.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good stuff, bro. Very much appreciate that. Yeah, always remember, guys, you have the ability to just drop single membership gifts. They definitely help a lot. So if you're able to do that, go for it. And DJ drops a second single membership gift. So 2 singles there. Bring us up to 9 members on the day. So we are making our way to the goal here, guys. Good stuff. Thank you for that, DJ. Brandon, you're saying I'm a game developer and you are still wrong. Stop saying misinformation. Listen, I'm not saying you're not a game developer. Maybe you actually are. But are you a game developer at PlayStation Studios? Do you know what's going on at PlayStation Studios? Because listen, I'm not a game developer, but what I can tell you is I follow PlayStation Studios closer than probably anybody else. And what I can tell you is that, for example, again, if we look at Firesprite, they were working on 2 projects this entire time. One project is a single-player horror game. The second project is a multiplayer live service that was apparently Twisted Metal and did ultimately get canceled. So if you were to say, well, that was wasted time and effort that could have gone into a second single-player project, you are correct. That is correct. If you were to say, now this means we're going to have to wait another 2 to 3 years extra on top of what we were already going to have to wait to get this single-player game from Firesprite, that would be wrong. That's where I'm saying the level of mismanagement would have to be next level in order for that to happen. What would have had to have happened is Sony said, we have over 300 developers at Firesprite. We're going to get all 300 of those developers, and we're going to put them onto one team, and that one team is just going to make a Twisted Metal live service game. And then that game doesn't get off the ground, it gets scrapped, and from that point forward, you have no choice but to say, okay, we put all our eggs in this one basket with this one giant team, and that basket was the live service basket, and it didn't work out. So now we have to completely start from scratch. That is not what is happening at Firesprite. What has happened at Firesprite is that game got canceled. There were some layoffs and some redundancies, unfortunately. And we are not going to see the return of Twisted Metal. But on the other side of that coin, this single-player horror game that's been in development is still going strong, and we are likely to see it revealed in the next year or two. And if you think about it, it's like that's the smartest way to approach it, where it's like, look, if we're going to invest in live service with a team of 300 developers, we need to make sure that at least half of this team is working on an actual project that is likely to make it to market. And the other half can work on something a little bit more experimental, a little bit more risky, something that could be a big hit, but again, the risk is high. And Sony, they realized that the risk was high, and the game ultimately got canceled for that. So again, I'm not saying, and this is where I don't want people to misinterpret, like, I'm not saying there wasn't any mismanagement. There certainly was some mismanagement. That should be obvious. But the degree in which PlayStation Studios has been mismanaged, I do think is misunderstood. Let's put Firesprite aside for a moment. Let's look at Insomniac Games. Insomniac Games is another massive AAA team at PlayStation, one of the most well-known, one of the most productive, one of the most efficient, seemingly. They've been doing a lot of heavy lifting for Sony this generation, certainly. More than any other studio, actually, come to think of it. Now, we knew as they were working on Spider-Man 2 that they were also working on Wolverine. And we also knew that there was a live service game in development. So there was Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, and a live service game. And not that long ago, we actually got a mock trailer, which is a trailer, like an internally produced trailer for this live service Spider-Man game, which was described as GTA Online meets Spider-Man. And it didn't necessarily look bad, but it looked very much like a live service game that you would expect to see from a team that's already knee-deep in making multiple other single-player projects. And by that, I mean, it looked like basically DLC. It didn't necessarily look like a full-blown standalone game. It didn't have anything necessarily unique about it to really make it seem like, oh, this is going to be the next big live service hit. Yeah, it basically just looked like Spider-Man 2 with a multiplayer add-on. That's essentially what it looked like. And again, to some people, it's like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. But when you consider that the goal is we want to make this like a 10-year live service game, you kind of realize I don't know that this is going to work the way you think it is. And something that was very clear to me when you look at that trailer, and this is so important, I think, to understand, and I think so many people are too quick to overlook this when we talk about PlayStation Studios, mismanagement, what's going on, where are the new single-player games, where's the new IP. Something that's really important, I think, to pay attention to there is it's obvious that not a lot of development time and resource went into whatever that canceled live service Insomniac multiplayer game was. Because if you watch that trailer, it literally did look like Spider-Man 2, like to a T. It looked no different. It was the same city. It basically looked like 5-player co-op for Spider-Man 2. That's what it looked like. It didn't really seem like it had anything, like it didn't look like any new assets were made for it. It didn't look like, it almost looked like it was an attempt at a proof of concept and it failed. That's what it looked like. So my question is, how severely did that impact the development of Wolverine or Venom? I'm going to say probably not at all, because the people who were set up to work on Wolverine and the people who were set up to work on Venom probably had nothing to do with this proof of concept attempt for a live service Spider-Man game. So in other words, while there was a level of mismanagement, the level of risk was mitigated to a large degree. Let's move on to another studio, Naughty Dog. Now, Naughty Dog is a unique case. Naughty Dog is the one that interests me the most because I think Naughty Dog might be the only studio that I'll be honest with you, I don't even think they were mismanaged. I think that they just, they couldn't see the forest for the trees. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't see the bigger picture until it was too late. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment. We have Oliver here, member for 14 months. He says, "What's up, MBG? I will be at Gamescom this year for the first time. Can't wait to try Phantom Blade Zero and Gothic Remake playability confirmed. Cheers." Well, that sounds awesome, dude. I hope you have a good time, Oliver, and you'll have to let me know when you go hands-on with Phantom Blade Zero. Definitely come back and let me know what it was like, dude. That's awesome. Have a good time. And we have Chris Brown with a $2 chat saying, pulled the trigger. I got a 512 gigabyte Quest 3. So fun. Well, there you go, man. There you go. We've been going on this journey with Chris for a little bit now, and he finally did it, guys. He pulled the trigger. But that's good. That's good, man. As long as you're having fun, that's what matters. And we have Classically BC with a chat saying, thanks for the videos. I enjoy the Sunday streams. Well, you're welcome. And that's also your first time super chatting. So I'm glad you enjoy the content, buddy. And I very much appreciate you being here. I'm glad you enjoy the Sunday streams. Good stuff. Now, what do I mean when I say that Naughty Dog wasn't necessarily mismanaged, but what had happened is they lacked insight. They lacked awareness. Well, if we look at what happened with Naughty Dog, it's very clear that at some point when they were making the multiplayer add-on for The Last of Us Part 2, Factions 2, they were like, you know what? We can turn this into a live service. And you know what? We can make one of the best live service games out there. We're Naughty Dog, right? Like, we're known for these big single-player, adventure games and action games and games like The Last of Us. So let's try our hand at something completely different and see if we could do the same thing in a completely different genre. And from all accounts, this is important to understand, because I think we do kind of have our answer here, guys, when it comes to some of this stuff. By all accounts, people who have played this live service multiplayer Last of Us game, because this was meant to be a standalone, like full-blown, dude, they hired, just to be clear, they hired the same person who created the Battle Pass for Fortnite. They hired that individual to make the Battle Pass for this Last of Us multiplayer game. The level of investment here was high, and the reason being is very likely because the game was actually very good. By all accounts, anybody who played this game said it was an amazing game. I don't see how it couldn't be an amazing game, because you're taking an established formula, that is The Last of Us gameplay, and just transplanting that onto a live service experience. Of course it can work. It should be a pretty seamless transition there. But the real problem is that along the way, I don't know, I would love to know who is to blame for this. Along the way, somebody in a leadership position, whether it be Neil Druckmann, whether it be Herman Hulst, whether it be Jim Ryan when he was CEO, or somebody else, maybe it was Connie Booth. She's no longer there either. But somebody in a leadership position didn't stop and take a second to realize, wait, if this is going to be our big AAA live service game, I mean like our 10-year game, how are these guys going to make single-player games going forward? How is that going? Like, we know that Naughty Dog's not going to go back to making smaller single-player game experiences like Jak and Daxter and Crash Bandicoot. They're not going to do that. Right? So somewhere along the way, somebody woke up and realized that, oh, this can't work. We cannot commit to like a 10-year live service, like a big live service game, and still make the biggest AAA games in the industry. And so my thought process here with Naughty Dog is that I think it comes from Sony, not Naughty Dog themselves. I think Naughty Dog was willing to try it and maybe had some kind of interest in like, yeah, let's carve out like our own live service or multiplayer experience. You know what I mean? Let's do that. But I think Sony really thought that, no, we can do it all, right? Somebody thought that maybe we could do it all. And we have Hellbound 1981, a legend popping up, dropping another 5-bomb for you guys. Hellbound, thank you so much, man.
Appreciate it.
I know what Hellbound wants. He wants us to get to that 25 mark so we can feed boss here some treats. Really appreciate you continuing the membership train. That brings us up to 14 members. So, guys, we are 11 members away from hitting our first goal here. So, a 10 bomb and a single, or a full blown 20 bomb. Good stuff, man. Thank you for the support as always, Hellbound. Saying, yo, hey, MBG, happy to chat live again. Been a while. Hope you and your family have been happy and healthy. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, we're doing well. I appreciate you being here again, man. I'm trying to get better at acknowledging some people that are kind of flowing in and out. It's hard, always trying to balance out the streams. We have Josh here with 2 super chats, and he says, first impressions on Stellar Blade. Man, this game is so badass. Combat is top notch, especially with the DualSense. And dare I say, ultimate bum going on. All-time goated year in PlayStation history. Cry to your auntie. Oh man, Josh is he's laying it down here, man. He's saying this is one of the best years for PlayStation. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? But I'm glad you're enjoying Stellar Blade, man. It is a really good game. Stellar Blade's a really good game. It's very fun. Brandon says, I want PlayStation to get back to the risky stuff like back with the PS2 and PS3 days. Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I think a lot of longtime PlayStation fans really feel that way. And I don't know if they will or not. That's a big question mark. I say that's a big question mark because, again, Jim Ryan's era is just coming to a close now. And a lot of future announcements we get are going to be announcements from the Herman Hulst and Hideaki Nishino era. Although I don't think Hideaki Nishino, in terms of the game conversation, like who's in charge, obviously he's not in charge of that. That's all Herman right there. So, well, actually, Hideaki Nishino is going to be in charge of third-party stuff. So I take that back. It's actually going to be just as important either way. But if you're talking about like greenlighting, more risky games or smaller games or just more experimental, if you watch that breakdown that PlayStation gave at their I guess I'll just call it their earnings, but it was basically like their yearly business report. They pretty much broke it up into 4 separate categories, and this is what gives me a lot of confidence that whatever problems Sony was having, they sorted it out because they now have all of their studios separated into categories and they all know what they're doing. Where you have their established like tentpole studios that are working on big tentpole titles, which we're going to go over in a couple minutes here. A lot of them being new IP. You have their support studios, which are there to, do PC ports as well as support any other big studio that needs help. And then you have the experimental studios, which are doing different stuff, like kind of what we're seeing with like Lego Horizon and apparently Sony Bend. They're going to be doing something a little bit different. And then you have their dedicated live service studios. And so I think when it comes to studio management and talking about PlayStation Studios, it does seem like they have a pretty good plan, a pretty good establishment of like, these studios go here, this is what they're doing. These studios go over here, this is what they're doing. And not to say that they can't move around. Of course, they always can. But it just seems like it's more organized than it maybe was a year or two ago. So, but yeah, just to kind of round out this specific section, kind of prefacing the conversation of like, what about the new IP? Where are the new games? Rounding out the section where we're talking about live service, potential mismanagement, what maybe went wrong. I think Naughty Dog is the biggest example of Sony and Naughty Dog. I think it was both of them, obviously, because Naughty Dog could have... I don't think Naughty Dog would have agreed to making a live service game if they didn't want to, because, I just don't think that's how it would work. I think that they agreed to it because they were under the belief that maybe we can pull this off, right? Like, over ambition, where we can make a AAA live service game, the best of them, right? and we can still make some of the best single-player games in the world. And unless Naughty Dog is willing to scale up to a team of like 1,200 developers, which is frankly not realistic, it's just not. There was no way that was going to happen. And that's my read on it. And so the reason why I'm kind of like highlighting these different studios is because when we go over what these studios are working on, and we specifically identify the studios that are working on new IP, I can't tell you when we're going to see these games. And that might be the biggest question that goes unanswered by the time we wrap the stream up, which maybe is a little bit unfortunate for some people. However, we can at least gauge what's going on and try our best to figure out how far along things may or may not be based on what we've been told so far and what little we do know. So let's begin, right? Let's dive into what about new IP? We know we're getting remakes. We know we're getting remasters. We have gotten remakes and remasters. We know Sony had a whole run for the last 4 years of sequels: Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, GT7, Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man 2. I mean, they were, in terms of sequels, remakes, and remasters, Sony has been on point. They have been firing on all cylinders. The last new IP we got from PlayStation Studios was, in fact, Returnal in 2021. So we have this kind of period of time, like the 2.5, 3 years of just minimal new IP. Now, has Sony announced new IP? Yes. Yes, they have. And I know you might be thinking, wait, what? What new IP? Well, Concord is a new IP that Sony announced last year. Fair Games is a new IP that Sony announced last year. But I already know what you're thinking. Oh, that's not really what we're talking about, MBG. That's not what we mean. And yes, I agree. I'm not saying, hey, man, Concord and Fair Games, that's all we need. No. Why is this even a topic? This is a topic because, well, to be honest, there's hardly any PlayStation news right now. And this is a conversation that has been persisting. So I figured it would just make for a good discussion. Yes, Boss has activated. Yeah, that's true. Destruction All-Stars was a new IP as well. So it's not to say that Sony hasn't announced any new IP since Returnal. They have. If we're just focused on the facts tell you Sony has announced new IP. But if we're looking a little bit deeper and adding our own desires and emotions to the conversation, which obviously we're going to do, oh, that's cool, Fair Games, and just for anybody who's wondering, Marathon is not a new IP from Bungie. Marathon is actually an established IP. It's just very old. But the real question is, all right, that's fine. Fair Games, Concord, but what about all the other Sony studios? All the ones that we haven't heard from in a really long time. How many of these studios are making new IP? And this is where I feel like it's going to be very important people need to realize that Sony has potentially more new IP in development than they ever have in their history. And I get it. Like, I get the frustration that people have where it's like, well, who cares? If they're not showing it, who cares? And look, I'm not saying you need to care. I'm not saying you need to hang onto job listings or anything like that. But what I am saying is that if you find yourself a little bit frustrated, or what I would say is more common, not necessarily frustration, getting involved in conversations on the internet, or just witnessing conversations or content or anything where people are trying, I don't even want to say that some people are trying, obviously in bad faith, but I think there are a lot of people who just simply actually don't know, where they are talking about PlayStation from a point of ignorance, where they don't realize that, listen, man, like, actually there's probably more new IP in development than ever before. Like, they have a lot going on behind the scenes. And so really what the conversation should only boil down to, which it never will, for a lot of people. But the truth is, the conversation should really only boil down to, okay, well, when is Sony going to announce these games? And again, that is the one question that I cannot answer for you guys today. I will try my best. But let's go over which studios are making new IP. Well, let's start with the more obvious ones. First and foremost, Sony Bend. I'm starting with Sony Bend because Sony Bend has been, I would say, the most vocal out of all the PlayStation studios. Sony Bend has flat out acknowledged multiple times publicly, we are working on a brand new AAA IP. Boss, bro, there ain't no way. This cat just farted on me, man. Trying to have a serious conversation about PlayStation studios right now, and this cat just comes over to my space and just farts on me. I'm just gonna read Josh's super chat here. That caught me off guard. I'm not gonna lie. He's taking things to the next level, dude. Josh comes in with a super chat saying, funny that was mentioned because Stellar Blade reminds me a lot of a PS2 game in terms of formula. Obviously, it's technologically advanced for PS5. Yeah, I agree. The gameplay design and just the flow of a game like Stellar Blade, it is very reminiscent in a positive way to some of these PS2 games we would get where, it didn't take itself too seriously, like as we see a lot of AAA games doing these days, but it took itself seriously enough where it's like, okay, I can get into this. But you could tell that this game, like, we're just trying to make it really fun. We're just trying to give you a good time here, and that's about it. And I think a lot of people really appreciated that about it. Don't do it. Guys, we got to get moving on these membership gifts, man. We got to hit that goal cuz he's becoming a little too impatient here. Chill, boss. Chill. Your time will come. We have a PlayStation Pete with a $5 super chat saying Sony doesn't need a showcase, roadmap, or too many first-party games because they have no competition, and they will have GTA 6 for the PS5 Pro, or like GTA 5, 6, PS5/Pro bundles. Yeah, we've had this conversation as well, PlayStation Pete, quite a few times where, the question is, does Sony feel like they really have to do much of anything right now when they feel as though there's probably minimal competition? My hope is that they should feel like they have to do something, but I do agree. Like, if Sony has 5, 6, 7 new IPs in development, they don't need to come out and be like, listen, guys, we got like 7 new games. Here's a splash screen for like 5 of them. Like, they don't have to do that. And I think realistically, nobody's necessarily asking for them to do that. But what they should do is, okay, we can show you one of these games, maybe 2, and the rest we're going to save. I think that makes the most sense right now. That's just my opinion because I do agree that GTA 6 is going to be absolutely massive for the PS5 and for gaming in general, but I don't want Sony to get so complacent that it's like essentially they're just going like years at a time with, oh yeah, we're not even going to give you an update, right? On what's going on with the studio or the project they're working on. And I think what makes it particularly bad, if we look at like Naughty Dog, for example, the last time Naughty Dog announced a new video game that wasn't a sequel, that wasn't a remake or a remaster, the last time they announced a brand new video game was in 2016. Over 8 years ago. So when you consider that, it's like, it is not unreasonable at all. Okay. But, boss, no, hold on. Okay. You gotta go. You gotta go. knock everything over, bro. It's happening. I'm gonna have to take him out of the room. He almost just knocked over my water. Yeah, absolute chaos with this cat, dude. You gotta just stop. Look, here's what I'll do. I can give you a little bit of catnip just to hold you over. All right. I hope I hope that's enough for now. But you think about that, right? You think about the fact that it's been that long since Naughty Dog announced a new game, a new video game. I don't think it's unreasonable at all for a PlayStation fan who is a fan of Naughty Dog, who's been a fan of Naughty Dog, to simply ask, like, Naughty Dog, where's your new game? Like, I think people are even accepting of the fact that we're not getting a new Naughty Dog game released this year or next year. It's not even about that. It's just, where is even the announcement of your new game? Do you even have a new game? And when enough time goes by for some of these studios, yeah, people are going to start to think, like, maybe they just don't have anything new. Like, it's been almost a decade. So, people start to lose confidence. And I think that's understandable. But at the same time, when we're looking at it from a more business-oriented standpoint of what's going on with the PlayStation business, what do they have in the pipeline that is even outside of their own studios, such as something like GTA 6, yeah, we do have to consider that, they might just say, well, Naughty Dog, you just let us know. When you're ready to announce your game, you let us know. And we have a subtext here with a $10 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, thinking back, 12 live service titles would take up all of Sony Studios' efforts. It seems like Jim Ryan was throwing all resources to chase that. Thank God they've scaled that back. It was too aggressive. Yeah, you know what I almost wonder, because this is another thought I've had too. I almost wonder if Jim Ryan's mandate was like, yeah, we need like 10 to 12 live service games. And he basically turns to Herman and he says, Herman, you're the head of PlayStation Studios. Make it happen. And I wonder if Herman basically was given this impossible task of like, okay, I have a limited number of studios to work with. Most of these studios are known for single player games, but I have this mandate where I have to be able to put together 10 to 12 games. Yeah, and Connie Booth as well. How do I do this? And that's why I think that when we look at the way everything played out, it's like you can kind of see how, like maybe Insomniac, when they presented their multiplayer game to Herman was probably like, I hope this will be good enough. I don't. It's hard to say, man. Subtext. It's impossible. I think years down the line, we're gonna get more insight into this. Like, we're gonna get more insight into what went down during the time that Jim Ryan was CEO, and some of it might not be good, dude. Like, it might be worse than we realized, or it might not be as bad as we realized, or as we thought. And I'm interested in finding out about that, but I think it's going to take some time. I think eventually, though, we're going to find out the truth. Like, what happened with this Naughty Dog game? What happened with this internal shakeup? Because there was clearly a shakeup of some kind with PlayStation leadership and studio management. And I also think that some of our answers will come in the form of, now that we have two new CEOs at the helm, depending on how much differently they do things, will give us a pretty clear indication of like, oh, okay, so that was Jim Ryan. You know what I mean? Like, looking at Tokyo Game Show, it's a small glimpse, but an immediate glimpse of Jim Ryan retires. And as soon as he retires and Herman and Hideaki Nishino take over, oh yeah, we're going back to TGS. Well, that was a quick turnaround. The documentary, yeah, we could only hope. But yeah, maybe it was too much, man. Maybe they just simply bit off more than they could chew. MBG, what's your opinion on the matter? Sony now announces games too close to release, or at least shows them. I guess you're asking me, like, how do I feel about the idea of Sony just like waiting to announce their games like really close to release? Well, I mean, we just saw them do that with Astrobot. You know, Sony announced Astrobot literally like 4 months prior to its launch. So it's not unthinkable that if you take a game like Naughty Dog's next game, for example, it's not unthinkable that Sony might say, announce it 1 year ahead, 12 months. If the game is set to launch, you know, November 2025, announce it between September and December of 2024. That could be a thing, dude. Like, I don't know that it's likely, but it could be a thing. At the rate things are going, I'm starting to wonder if it is actually going to be a thing. We also have the Backlog, a member for 10 months, saying, why does it matter if it's Sony's new IP? First, Descendant, ZZZ, Stellar Blade, Unicorn Overlord, Wukong, Flintlock, Throne and Liberty, Slitterhead, all this year. Well, it's up to the individual, the Backlog. It's up to each individual to determine how much it like that matters to them. Like, for me personally, I care very much about PlayStation Studios. And while there are many other games I'm very interested in, right? Like, you mentioned it, like Black Myth Wukong. Absolutely, dude. August 20th can't get here quick enough. I'm super stoked for that game. And I think it's going to be great. I'm very happy for it. But I cannot deny that, you know, there's another truth that exists at the same time for me. And that truth is, no matter how excited I am for Black Myth Wukong, I'm still sitting here wondering, like, where is Naughty Dog? Where is Santa Monica's new game? Where's Bluepoint? Like, when are we going to see these games? And that's not to say I'm like upset about it. You know, I think that's something I have to make known as well, because I do see a lot of people, they act like they're like legitimately mad at Sony. And it's like, I'm not mad at Sony. I have games, they're giving me games literally right now. I'm not mad at them. It's just more like a sense of anticipation and eagerness. You know, I'm eager to know what these games are. I'm eager to know when we're going to hear about them. I'm eager to know when we're going to see them for the first time. And that's not going to interfere with my enjoyment of Black Myth Wukong, right? Of other, whether it be third-party exclusives, time, like, it's not going to interfere with my enjoyment of Silent Hill 2 Remake at all. Like, these things are, in a way, completely separate. And so, for now, it's just a matter of, in this period of silence, I guess you could say, with PlayStation, where obviously PlayStation's not out here making any significant announcements. They're not out here talking about their studios right now. It's about to be the middle of July. Like, that's not usually the time they ever do that. There are games here and now, absolutely. And there is plenty to enjoy here and now from both PlayStation as well as, you know, third parties. But for me, this is the conversation that seems to pull me in the most right now, because it is the biggest blind spot. You know what I mean? It's the biggest blind spot where you could have like a nice field of sunflowers, but you had that one giant ass weed right there. Like, no matter how much you would enjoy all those sunflowers, and, you know, there's so many of them, it's like you're still gonna like that one weed that's sticking out is gonna catch your attention. Like, what's going on there? Like, that something seems not right there. I feel like there's kind of a, you know what I mean? It's basically that. That's what this is almost everything else around PlayStation seems to be pretty good and okay. At the very least, okay to pretty good. And the only thing that is like just the biggest blind spot and just unknown is still simply like, what are these studios working on, dude? I'm like, I've been waiting years to find out. And I don't mean that in an entitled way. Like, they better show me or else. Like, I see people act like that all the time. And that annoys me so much, Because it's like, dude, no one cares. I'm going to sell my PlayStation. Then sell it. I'm going to go to PC. Then go to PC. Like, no one cares, man. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's the entitlement that comes through with some people, where they make it seem like if they threaten Sony on the internet, so, you know, Sony's gonna be like, oh, we can't have that. And that's the thing, man, is like, there are extreme circumstances on rare occasion where everybody gets together and they all say the same thing. Everybody gets together and they're like, yeah, we are selling our PlayStations, or we are selling our Xboxes. We are moving away from this platform, like, en masse, because you made a huge mistake or you let us down. That does happen on rare occasion, but it takes something like cataclysmic to make that happen. We saw it with the PS3. We saw it with the Xbox One. It can happen, but it takes a huge, huge, huge mistake that takes years and years and years of undoing. That's not what Sony has done. What Sony has simply done is they have a year of games that are not the usual. It's not the norm. It is not normal for Sony's big holiday title to be something like Astrobot. It is not normal, you know, for even something like a big holiday title to be a partner title like Silent Hill 2 Remake. I would say this is pretty abnormal. It's different. And I think people are confusing different with bad. And I see it everywhere. You know, I see people, they like talk about Astrobot. It's not a lot of people, but I do see it from time to time where it's like, oh, it's a kid's game. Where are the AAA games? Where are the mature games? And it's like, dude, can you just let people who are excited for Astro, like, can we just be excited for this game? Because we don't really get games like this that often, you know? Like, it's okay if there's 1 year where we get a game like Astro instead of a game like The Last of Us. That's fine. Or a game like Days Gone. It's okay. It's called diversity, you know? It's called variety. And there's a lot of strange. You're saying it's not different? Well, that's interesting. So you think this year's not different from previous years? In terms of consistency, I would agree. If we're talking about sheer consistency, I agree. But yeah, I think that it's just simply a matter of understanding the cyclical nature of game development and gaming releases in general. I think it's also as simple as there are too many people who do not understand the simple, basic concept of two things can be true at one time. And they're both just as true. One's not any more or any less true than the other. They're both true at the same time. And I think that there are too many people who don't understand that simple concept absolutely is what is on display right now when it comes to Sony PlayStation and PlayStation Studios. And you know, this is why you see people kind of arguing about stuff, because it's like, well, no, that's not true. Like, it can't possibly be true that PlayStation is doing okay, because look at what they have released this year, right? It can't possibly be true that Astrobot, it can't possibly be true that PlayStation fans are actually excited for a game like Astrobot. It's like, it's true. Yep. It's true that there are a lot of PlayStation fans who actually feel like Sony's doing a pretty good job. I know that's hard for some people to believe. In fact, it's so hard for some people to believe they won't believe it. And I'll tell you that's not true. It's bullshit. And they will completely invalidate your opinion and make it seem as though it's some kind of weird mental state that is unhealthy. When in reality, the truth of the matter is that a person who is not fully satisfied with what PlayStation has offered this year is fully valid in feeling that way. In the same way that a person who is feeling satisfied and is enjoying what Sony has offered this year is also just as valid. And the truth, the actual singular truth, is that these two groups of people need to be able to agree to disagree, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Sony's got more games in development. We're about to cover that right now. We're about to go over the new IP that Sony has. So even though you might not be too thrilled with what Sony has this year, they probably are going to have something for you next year or the year after that. That's the way it goes, man. Like, I would like to think that anybody who's been involved in video games for more than a couple of years has that understanding, you know? We also have subtext once again saying, I wonder if the splitting of the CEO role between platform and software was a Jim Ryan learning. By all accounts, Jim Ryan led the platform to big results, but first-party game production seemed to hit challenges. Interesting observation. It very well could be. In fact, I would go as far to say the answer is yes. Right? Because it seemed to me like when Hiroki Totoki, he's the president of Sony and the CFO, when he temporarily took over, he said he was like trying to learn as much as he could about the business. And he probably learned a lot in a short period of time. See Hanzo using that Totoki emoji. It always gets me. He probably learned quite a bit about the PlayStation business pretty quickly. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was like a kind of upper management decision from Sony, like the upper executives, basically saying like, we should take a different approach. You know, we should absolutely take a different approach here because we have two people who are very much qualified to run the business, but they both have unique strengths. You know, Hideaki Nishino, his strength is he is killing it with the platform stuff, dude. He's been just fully engrossed in that side of it to a degree in which Herman hasn't. And if it was just Herman, he would be a little bit blind, you know, just like if it was Hideaki Nishino only, he would be blind. And I think Jim Ryan was a little bit blind. And I don't even think it was his fault. I think it's just the nature of Jim did seem more like a platform / business oriented executive at Sony, not so much on the creative side, not so much on the like development side. And I think really what Jim probably had to do was kind of rely on other people around him to tell him, you know, or to inform him without having that knowledge himself. It's pretty normal, I guess you could say. And so I am curious to see how this works out because it's split, man. You know, you got somebody who's an expert with the games, with the production, development timelines and all that stuff, you know, portfolio management. And then on the other side, you have somebody who's an expert in the actual platform itself, the hardware, you know, the services, all that stuff. I'm very curious to see how this works out. So I think you might be on to something, subtext. And we also have Rich Rod with his obligatory MB Gangstas Concord Gangstas win August Xbox Wangstas. I love how you have to throw the Xbox side of it in there, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try the beta, man. I'm curious. I'm not super stoked. I'm not super excited at all, but I can't deny I'm curious to see what this game plays like. There has to be something there. Like there has to be. There has to be. We have Hanzo, member for 12 months. He says, all right, guys, take Metal Gear Solid 1. Replace the main characters with action heroes. Who plays who in the game and why? Hope you are all blessed. Stay healthy and keep gaming. Boss, Bad Cat, he is, I can't believe him. He's just straight up jumping right onto my desk here, not giving an F about anything that's in front of him. Hanzo, I'm not going to do every character, but yeah, I mean, I see Matthew saying young Kurt Russell is Snake. I'd have to agree with that. Who would play Ocelot? Yeah, who would play Liquid? Who would play Psycho Mantis? I'm sure you guys can think of much better picks than I can. That I am sure of. Hanzo out here straight up trying to derail. Matthew's been thinking about this for a while. Hanzo, you're saying the question is for everyone. All right, chat. Give us your best cast for Metal Gear Solid 1 movie. Anthony Hopkins as Psycho Mantis. Wow, actually, that's great. Emilio Estevez as Liquid. Interesting. That's an interesting choice. I don't think he would be convincing enough. MRPD says, I am also Liquid. I will say, though, yeah, young Kurt Russell Snake, I think the creation of the character Solid Snake was actually based on young Kurt Russell. MBG is Snake. Is that Metal Gear Solid movie still coming, by the way? If it was made by Sony, then Tom Holland. Yeah, correct. Oh, that would be interesting. You're saying the guy... Okay, yeah. I know who you're talking about. All right. Well, you got Forrest Whitaker as Snake. There we go. We'll end it there. We'll move on to the next chat. We have MRPD, member for 12 months, saying, hoping we get another 40-minute gameplay Death Stranding 2 at TGS on the PS5 Pro. Just finished Chapter 9 on Rebirth, and you need to jump back in, bro. I know, man. I know. I've just accepted that game is going to be in my backlog for a while, and I'm not going to force it. It's got to happen naturally, but it will happen. Eventually, it will happen. I will say, Death Stranding 2 showing up at Tokyo Game Show with a demo would be fantastic and would make a lot of sense. That would be awesome. And I think we might get it. Kojima Productions did confirm they will be at Tokyo Game Show. They're going to have a booth. So, just a heads up. The Rock would be good Raven. Prince G, member for 7 months, says, as the charming Jack Trenton once said, quote, consoles are a 10-year investment, end quote. Yeah. Don't get too many Jack Trenton quotes these days, but yeah, he was a legend when it comes to PlayStation executives. Wonder what he's doing now. And we have the Backlog with another $5 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, here we go. To my MB gangsters, have you beat every game that looks interesting to you? Have you tried anything new in the last 6 months? My backlog is over. You're saying it overfloweth. Too many good games. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, the backlog. And I don't... Come on, boss. I don't want to make it seem like, again, that, like, it's a conversation where it's like, man, Sony, we have nothing to play. What are you doing, bro? Where are the games, Sony? Where are the games? I ain't got nothing to play on your PS5. Like, that doesn't make any sense, like, at all. Because it's so objectively false, And a lot of people do talk like that. And that's why I try very much to emphasize that when we have these conversations, they're meant to be conversations that exist outside of that. Not because of that. Because that doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Like, we are not gathered here today to talk about PlayStation's new IP and where their new IP is, what are they working on. We're not doing that because they don't have games, like that there are no games. We're doing that because there haven't been announcements from many of their studios in quite a few years. Two different things there. So I get where you're coming from, Backlog. But listen, Sony Bend. That's one new IP. Sony Bend confirmed they're working on a new AAA IP. Now, what's interesting about Sony Bend's game is they did confirm there will be multiplayer. And they did also confirm through a job listing that they are looking for somebody with experience in live service. However, and this is where things get interesting, their game is not listed under a live service. Sony listed all of their studios, and they had like 4 studios listed as a live service. Sony Bend was not one of them. I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know what to make of that. But either way, new AAA IP, Sony Bend, that's one studio. Now, as for when this game's going to be announced, well, think about it. When's the last time Sony Bend announced a new game? Was it like 2016 with Days Gone? Another studio that we haven't heard from since, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 2016. Another studio where it's been like close to a decade. Not quite a decade, but 8 years or so. So the idea that they're not going to be ready to reveal anytime soon sounds absurd to me. Because it's like, guys, it's been literally 8 years. Surely, it's been like 5 years since you launched Days Gone. I think Sony Bend will be ready to show sooner rather than later. So that's one new IP. Now, I'm not here to say you'll be excited about that IP. I just want to make that clear as well. I'm not saying you should be excited for these games. I'm just here to tell you these are the new IP in development. So Sony Bend, that's one. Next up, we have Naughty Dog. Now, the only interesting thing about Naughty Dog is they refuse to explicitly state new IP. But there have been multiple rumors and leaks, but more importantly, Neil Druckmann has said multiple times that they're working on something new. And he has used terminology multiple times to make it clear, if you have paid attention to anything he's had to say, to make it clear that he's not talking about Uncharted. He's not talking about The Last of Us. He's talking about a brand new game. They have a brand new game that they've been working on. And this is where, again, when we talk about the conversation, well, did they just start making this brand new game? No. The answer is no. The whole time that Naughty Dog was making The Last of Us multiplayer, they were also working on this game. Just so everybody's aware. Naughty Dog has been working on this game for multiple years. They did not just start working on this game. Now, I'm not here to say it's going to release next year. I'm not even going to say it's ready to release in 2026. What I will say is they have been working on this game for quite some time. And I do believe, the only thing I really have to back this up is it's been, like I said, it's been 8 years. So 2 studios that haven't revealed a new game in about 8 years. Sony Bend, Naughty Dog, both working on new IPs. That's another new game. Brand new, not a sequel, not a remake, not a remaster. That's 2. 3, Housemarque. Housemarque has explicitly confirmed multiple times they're working on a new AAA IP. And we don't know what it's going to be. It's not a sequel to Returnal. We did talk about this recently. It's not a sequel, but it is a new IP. And Housemarque did great things with Returnal. A lot of you guys love Returnal. I love Returnal. There's a lot of love for that game. And you would think that with how successful Returnal was, they'd be like, oh, we got to name whatever we do next Returnal 2. But no, they said we are doing a new IP. So that's a third new AAA IP. Now, granted, Housemarque's last game was more recent in 2021. So even though they are working on a new IP, I'm going to say we're probably not going to hear from them for a little while. I don't think we're going to get a new Housemarque announcement this year or next year. Maybe we will in 2026. But either way, it's another new IP. So that's 3. 4. Let me see here. Oh, hold on. I lost it. I had all this stuff written down. Oops. Technical difficulties here, guys. Hold on. 4, Sony Santa Monica. This is another huge one. Sony Santa Monica is easily one of Sony's biggest and best studios. Some even would say bigger and better than Naughty Dog. Some would say Santa Monica Studio is their number one studio, and they have been working on a brand new IP for many years. Okay? Cory Barlog has probably been working on this game with his team at Santa Monica, honestly, probably since 2019. So it's been many years. And he's teased this game quite a few different times. It's going to be maybe some kind of space sci-fi game. That's another trip. Dude, that's 4 AAA new IPs, by the way. For those keeping track or not keeping track, that's 4 just right off the bat. Those are 4 brand new IPs. And again, I know how some people are going to take this. Like, who cares, dude? If they're not announced yet, who cares? It's like, well, if you care enough to screech, Sony has no games, or where are the games? Surely you'd be willing to pay attention to this to know this is where they are. They're being worked on. They've been worked on for many, many years. You're probably going to see them in the coming years. Like in the next 1 to 3 years, you're going to see probably most of these games announced. And also, yeah, a lot of people don't realize why it's taking so long. That's another thing too. That's a whole nother discussion. But yes, for those wondering why are these games taking so long, we've talked about it ad nauseum. But for those who maybe don't know, it's because these games are more expensive than ever to make. And because of that, the production times themselves are longer than ever, which is making the games more expensive because the games are they're aiming for the stars, dude. They're trying to go as big as they can. Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Sony Bend, they're not trying to make smaller games. And I'm not here to say that that's a good or bad thing. I'm just here to say that's what it is. They're making very, very big games. So, yeah, that's why it's basically like, oh, why is it taking you 8 years to announce your new game? There's also the fact, though, that apparently, a lot of people internally at PlayStation Studios have kind of, not a lot, but a few sources inside of PlayStation Studios have stated that one of the reasons why they haven't announced any of these games yet is because they want to announce them much closer to launch. It takes a lot of pressure off of the dev teams. It's another thing worth mentioning here. Before I read these chats, though, I just want to make sure we cover. So that's 4 new IP. Another studio, granted, it's not the biggest studio, but it's still a beloved studio for a lot of people. Media Molecule. Media Molecule confirmed they are working on a new AAA IP. Now, their game is a ways out. That's probably a PlayStation 6 game because they just recently had some layoffs. They shut down Dreams, and they did confirm they moved on to a new AAA game that they're working on. So that's 5. Haven Studio. We know what the game is. This is one of the only studios underneath Sony where we know what their new game is, and it's their first game, and it's Fair Games. Now, I don't know what Fair Games is going to be like. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not super excited for it. I'll be willing to give it a chance, just like I am for Concord. So I'm not, I'm not saying I'm excited about Fair Games, but I also do want to acknowledge that it's a game that some people might be interested in, and it is a new IP underneath Sony. So again, if we're just looking so far, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 6 new IP. We could throw Concord in there. Concord is a new IP. That would be 7, but I'm not necessarily going to count that because, well, no, I do want to count that. Like, come on, we got to be fair here. I don't want to bullshit. I don't want to pick and choose. If we're just being fair, talking about brand new IP, Concord is another one. So that's 7. Now, the 8th new IP is a question mark. This is the only one where I don't know if it's actually a new IP because we can't seem to get explicit confirmation as Blue Point Games. All right, Blue Point is working on a new game, and they keep describing their game as an original title, which absolutely could be a new IP. I want to make it known they could be working on a new IP, something brand new, totally original. But the fact that they refuse to use the term new IP, that's a term that's used across the industry, and they seem to be avoiding that. So I don't know that I can, if they are doing something God of War related, if they are doing something Uncharted related, it would be disingenuous to claim that's a new IP, because that's not a new IP. That's a new game and an established IP. So that's the only game I would say that's a question mark. And so we're looking at 7 and 8 new IP, and I'm not here to tell you that all of those new IP are going to be for you. I'm not here to tell you that you should be excited about all of these games. I'm not even saying you should be excited about any of them. Wait till they're revealed, right? Well, I mean, Concord, we know what it is. Fair Games, we know what it is. But for all the others, wait for the reveal. But what I am here to tell you is that if you are that person who is wondering, where are the new games? This is where they are. There is an entire, nearly half of PlayStation studios are working on new IP. That's not even partner studios. That's their internal studios. And many of them have been working on new IP for many years. Some of them, they're going to take longer, such as Housemarque and Media Molecule, like we said. But there you go. This is the pipeline. Now, if you're wondering what's going on with all the other studios, does that mean they're not working on new IP? Correct. Guerrilla Games is still working on Horizon. They're making Horizon 3. San Diego Studio, that's the MLB studio. They're going to keep working on MLB The Show. We know that Bungie is working on Marathon and apparently Destiny 3. Who else am I forgetting here? And there's a couple more I'm forgetting. Okay, so here's a good one. Why didn't I mention Firesprite? Okay, Firesprite is actually not working on a new IP, apparently. They are working on a horror game, but from what we understand, Firesprite's new horror game is actually based on an established horror IP that PlayStation owns. So apparently Firesprite was given an old horror PlayStation IP. Some people are thinking it's Until Dawn 2. I think it's Until Dawn 2. I think there are many signs that point to Firesprite's next game being Until Dawn 2. And that might be disappointing for some people, but I think that's what they're working on. But that would not be a new IP. Would it be Siren? I don't think so. So that's why I didn't count Firesprite. Insomniac Games, obviously, we're not going to count. Wolverine is not a new IP. It's a new game. First time getting a Wolverine game from PlayStation and Insomniac, but it's an established IP, a Marvel IP. Neon Koi. So I don't know if they're working on a new IP. Neon Koi, just for those who don't know, it's such a random studio underneath PlayStation Studios. They're working on a mobile game. Neon Koi has been working on a mobile game, a AAA mobile game, but nobody knows if it's a new IP or not. Nixus Software, they're porting PC games to PC. Sucker Punch. Why didn't I mention Sucker Punch? Because Sucker Punch is absolutely working on Ghost of Tsushima, which is obviously extremely exciting. Team Asobi, Astrobot. Valkyrie Entertainment, that is a support studio, and XDev, also another support studio. Although it's worth noting, XDev could be supporting new IP like Rise of the Ronin. So if you want to get really technical about it, Rise of the Ronin is a new IP where PlayStation Studios helped develop it. So if you want to count that, you can count that. But if we're just talking about, the studios that are making the game from top to bottom. So PS5 sequels, check. Remakes, check. Remasters, check. What about new IP? Well, the check mark is coming very soon. Very soon. Oh yeah, that's a good one too, William. Yeah, this is some inside baseball. William says, don't forget Jason Blundell's Secret Studio and Studio Malaysia's secret game. That I don't know about, by the way. I have no information on that, William. You're saying Malaysia's secret game. They do have, let me see here. Malaysia Studio. Support for first-party titles such as The Last of Us Part 1 and MLB The Show 22. So right now they're listed as support, but you have to tell me where I can find info about if they have a new game, because that'd be quite surprising. That'd be the first time hearing of that. But yeah, there is a secret PlayStation studio, by the way, guys, which, again, this is taking things a bit far, because this studio could get shut down before it even is ever announced. But Jason Blundell, as we've talked about, formerly of Deviation Games, formerly of Treyarch, pretty much the creator of Call of Duty Zombies, he is working internally at PlayStation at a studio, not an established studio, like a newly formed studio, and they've been hiring people from Deviation Games and probably from Treyarch, and they're working on something new. It's very much in the shadows. It's being kept a secret, and it has not been formally announced yet. But there have been, there's been multiple leaks that from people who were clearly not supposed to announce this, but they basically said like, "Yeah, I'm working at this secret place. I'm working at PlayStation Studios with Jason Blundell." It's like, huh? Hold on, what? It's like nothing. Never mind. Is it a new FPS? Probably. Yeah, it's clearly something like that. So, we could count that as well. I'm just a little bit hesitant because the studio itself hasn't even been announced. So that's one of those things where keep in mind, it's there. It's a thing. When will Sony announce it? I mean, that to me could be like a PlayStation 6 type announcement, but they're working on something. So there we go. We have, sorry to keep you guys waiting. We have Mamoru Chiba, member for 13 months, says, "Call me Phil. What we should discuss is, will Sony ever be peak gaming again? God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Spider-Man 2 failed to create hype. People want the triple anus again." I won't. So to answer your first question, will Sony be peak gaming again? Yes, absolutely. And that's what I think is so funny is that I try to listen. I always love having these conversations because I just know, I know what people think. Not everybody, but a lot of people. I know that Sony has not had the best, in the eyes of most people, this has not been the best generation for PlayStation. But what people need to realize, and I just don't know that I just don't know that people are going to realize this until it finally happens. And I get it. It's like one of these things where it's like, all right, show, don't tell. I don't work at PlayStation. I can't show you anything. So I could just basically tell you what I know as somebody who doesn't work at PlayStation Studios. But dude, listen, people are treating Sony so harshly because they don't realize your expectation is through the roof. And I'm not here to tell you it shouldn't be. It should be because Sony created that expectation themselves. The person that is sitting here in 2024 screeching, where's my triple anus greatness, Sony? What is this Astrobot? Where's my big fucking, where's my God of War? Is my Ghost of Tsushima? Is my Last of Us? Is my God of War? Where are they? I cannot blame that person because Sony created that person, bro. Like, yes, this is the result of you just have home run after home run after home run. You go on a tear so good over the course of a decade that if you do anything less than that, people are going to criticize you because they expect you to do better. You have created that expectation. And that's the truth, man. That's the truth. That's why when Sony does host another showcase, the expectation is higher, I'd say, than it's ever been. Truthfully. Because it's like, yeah, they're suffering from success. There you go. But the expectation for their next showcase is going to be absolutely through the roof, probably higher than we've ever seen, because they had a showcase that was weaker than I think most of their previous showcases, a showcase that people were not very satisfied with. And we are at a time, again, this is a year where, look, I think Sony has done a good job this year, but even I can acknowledge that, like, yeah, you're not getting like a God of War this year. You're not getting a triple A new IP this year. You're not getting The Last of Us multiplayer. You're not getting The Last of Us Part 3. You know what I mean? You're not getting a new Naughty Dog game. You're getting games. You're getting a lot of them. But that main thing that Sony's known for, like that main, like, oh shit, the bomb is being dropped. That's not happening. There's no bomb drop this year. Unless they maybe in a showcase with the Pro or something, they could announce a new game. And that's what we could count as like the bomb. In terms of like dropping that game, that's like, oh, there's the goatee. You know? Dan, you are correct. You're saying Rebirth is Game of the Year, PS5 exclusive, bro. Well, yeah, but that's where I can't not see the fact that like that's not Sony's game. Like, I gotta just be honest. If the roles were reversed, and I'm just being brutal. See, this is where people I don't think will give me credit on the internet. Not that I care, but hopefully you guys will at least remember I'm saying this. I got to be just totally honest. If the roles were reversed and Rebirth was an Xbox exclusive, and I saw Xbox players saying that's Microsoft Game of the Year, I'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Microsoft doesn't own that game. They didn't make that game. That's not a Microsoft game. That's a Square game. They money-hatted Game of the Year. That's what I would say if it was an Xbox game. I have to keep that same energy for Sony. And that's why it's like, it's good for Sony. Yes. Yes, that's right. The PlayStation logo will be right there, alongside Rebirth if it's nominated for Game of the Year. But come on, like it's very different. A game like Rebirth being announced for Game of the Year, not that I care about Game of the Year that much. It just makes for an interesting conversation. A game like Rebirth being announced for Game of the Year and it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive is, to me, that is not the same as The Last of Us Part 2 being nominated for Game of the Year or like Ghost of Tsushima being nominated for Game of the Year. It's just different. And I think what makes it different is that I think it's pretty simple. It's that one game was made by PlayStation, by like PlayStation employees and developers. The other was not. You know what I'm saying? So I always try to cut through that where like I can't help but pay attention to the details. Like to an onlooker that doesn't know any different, they would listen to the average random like gamer who's not paying attention to this stuff. They probably do assume, oh yeah, PlayStation made Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or at the very least they made it with Square. And it's like, no, they paid for it, and that's okay. I'm not against that. Like that's a thing you can do. Square has to agree to that, but this is where, it's all a matter of perspective at the end of the day. And from my perspective, there's just something different about knowing a game. Saying, wait, what about OG Halo MBG? Did you think that was a Microsoft game or not? What? I mean, that's a tough one, man, where like, I mean, that's where we really start to get into the semantics of it, where it's like, did Microsoft make Halo? No, they didn't. They didn't. They didn't, dude. Like, just like Sony didn't make Spider-Man 1. Insomniac made it. Then Sony bought Insomniac, and we can say Sony made Spider-Man 2. Maybe I'm being a bit too technical about it. I get it, and maybe that's a bit annoying, but I can't help it. Like I just can't help but see the details where it's like, wait, that it's important to understand that like Spider-Man 1 was a PlayStation exclusive, but Insomniac was a partner to PlayStation, not owned by PlayStation. And that's where it's been tough for me with the Microsoft acquisitions. It's like when Starfield came out, like that was a tough one because I'm like, it feels like it's like it feels like it's not a Microsoft game, dude. It feels like this is Microsoft's way of money hatting it, except they took it to the next level where we didn't just money hat it, we own it. Just like kind of what they did with Halo, where it's like, but when the Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, we will be able to say definitively, with no ifs, ands, or buts, that's a Microsoft game. And I think really what it comes down to is the timing of it all. It would be like if Sony acquired Square Enix tomorrow, and then when we get part 3 of Final Fantasy VII, and it's like, okay, now we can say that's a Sony game. That is a PlayStation Studios title. I try to view it that way because even though it's a little bit annoying and it's a little bit like, again, it can feel irritating to people because it's like, well, who cares about all the fine details? But it's like, well, I do because I can't help but notice them, Acquisition is not a money hat. They bought the building, not just the bag drop off. LOL. Yeah, I will say, that's that's where it almost becomes like dude, I swear it almost becomes a philosophical discussion because it's like, okay, if you buy the building and you own the product and you own the employees, but you basically are just like, do whatever you want. It feels like really all you truly purchased at that point was the responsibility. But that's, you own the IP as well. So it seems to me like that. I think that's the biggest difference of it all, right? Where it's like there's IP ownership versus non-IP ownership. And I feel like if you were to acquire a publisher or something, or even a studio, well, let's just say a publisher, keep it simple. You buy a publisher, I mean, you're still going to have failed projects, right? Like you're still going to have things go wrong and you're going to be responsible for them. But at the end of the day, you get to walk away being like, yeah, but I own that, like everything. I own all the IP. If this team disintegrates, like for example, the Evil Within, like Microsoft owns the Evil Within. Microsoft owns Hi-Fi Rush. And even though Tango Gameworks is gone, like, dude, these IP, Microsoft owns them. They could do whatever they want with them in the future. And I don't know, man. I'm not saying, obviously you're paying for the talent. You're not just paying for the IP, but it's just interesting to kind of think of like from a decision-making level, from a business decision-making level, like why Sony operates the way they do versus why Microsoft operates the way they do, because they couldn't be more different if you think about it. What's the point, though? Well, that's the thing, man. The irony in this conversation, because I'm definitely getting a little bit off track here, but the irony of this conversation is that at the end of the day, like the end result, I say, listen, I just want to know for me, as the consumer, what does it mean for me? What it means is exclusive games that won't launch on the other platform. That's what it means. And it's like, well, is it timed? It's like, well, yeah, but if you're asking what does this mean for me at the launch of a game I care about, that's what it means. Period. End of, you know what I mean? End of discussion for most people. The discussion for me doesn't end there, but for most people, the question is as simple as, do I get this game on my console or not? And depending on the game, the answer is yes or no. And so that's why I feel like it's hard. Like, I think my expectation of people is too high, where I expect people to be able to identify these differences, and I expect them to understand the differences. And I realize my expectation is too high because most people don't give a shit. Because why would they? Because most people are just simply talking not from the like prosumer or enthusiast point of view, just the simple consumer point of view. Like, what does this mean for me? So I try to keep that in mind. It's just hard when I'm, talking for nearly 2 hours and I'm really starting to get in the weeds of it. But Irfan, you're saying Sony lost money on Rebirth? They probably did. Yeah. Don't be surprised if the third game isn't exclusive, dude. I think there was probably some kind of breakdown where there was probably some kind of clause in the contract that states like if it fails to sell this amount or make this amount of money, then the partnership's broken off. Dude, that clause exists with Marvel, where there's like a minimum sales unit. So like we need 6 million minimum. And if not, both parties, the contract is terminated. That absolutely exists for Square as well. And so, guys, I'm telling you right now, man, prepare yourselves. Like if part 3 is probably going to be multiplat. I mean, I could maybe it won't be. I don't know. Maybe Sony really did lock that shit down like to the end, but yeah, that's true, Josh. You're saying yeah, but Square Enix is not Marvel. That's true. Well, maybe it was the other way around, dude. Maybe it was from Sony's perspective. Maybe like Sony was the one who made the like. I'm saying Sony could be the one to try to add the clause and that could have tried to add the clause into the contract where they were like, listen, we think this is going to do well, but just in case it doesn't, we need an out. Like we want a way out. And that's just smart business, you know, because it's like, listen, if shit goes south and suddenly the game's just not making money, the deal becomes bad for both parties. You want to, you know, it would be mutually beneficial to like, okay, let's just end this. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth sales will go up when they show the better version for the PS5 Pro. Oh yeah, we'll see if they do that. That could help boost the sales. That'd be interesting. All right. We got Paul here, member for 7 months, says it's possible Sony will announce games much closer to launch. As we saw with Astrobot, Sony can afford to, unlike Microsoft, who shows everything early. I do agree that I think Sony has earned that. And I think that's what I try. I got a little bit distracted and taken off a point that I was trying to make probably, I would say, like 20 minutes ago or so. And the point that I was trying to make is that people need to realize that Sony's situation and Microsoft's situation are very different. Like, just from an objective standpoint, they are very different. They have been very different. They continue to be very different. They are still not anywhere near the same. For example, if people look at Sony right now and they say, well, Sony's in the same position that Microsoft was a couple of years ago, wrong. They are not. If somebody were to say, well, Sony's in the same position right now that Microsoft was in 7 years ago, wrong. They are not. If somebody says Microsoft is in the same position that Sony was in a couple of years ago, wrong. They are not. They're both in very different positions. And this is where I think people need to pay closer attention or be more aware of you're talking about a company that bought like a couple of studios and Bungie was their biggest acquisition versus a company that bought 2 publishers, one of them being the biggest in the world. There's no reason either of them should find themselves in, like, they should never be in a similar situation under any circumstances because it doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Now, if you're looking at it from, well, let's not look at it from a similar standpoint, but just, it's like, yeah, bad in different ways, right? Where, here's my thing, right? My whole thing with Sony's position right now is I feel, and look, I understand how it sounds. Sure, I'm a fanboy, whatever. But I feel that Sony has at least earned like a little bit of leeway here where it's like, they're not giving me a drought. They're not saying we don't have games for you. They're just saying like, we're not ready to show the games that we're working on and we're not ready to show you what you're going to play next year or for the rest of this generation. And that does suck where it's like, I'd really love to know. And it's, you know, I would love to see these games and know what the roadmap is. But at the same time, it's like, that's That's coming after, again, like I try to explain this to people, but they just don't want to hear it for some reason. And I don't know why, because it's like it's just the truth, man, where from 2015 to 2023, Sony, like, they just did not stop. Like, that run, think about that run. Go look at the games that came out that Sony released between 2015 and 2023. And it's not that they even stopped release. It's not like, dude, this is not Microsoft 2022 where there is literally no games. That's not what this is either. It's just there's not the type of games you expect. There's not the type of announcements you expect. So I guess I'm just trying to say that, like, listen, if Sony went on a tear for basically a decade, and this is the first year where there's like a bit of a slowdown. It's like we got to kind of like, get our shit together again and like reload. Okay. I think you've earned that. Fuck. In the meantime, I'll just be playing what's dropping now and for the rest of the year. And that's what I'm trying to explain. Like, people, the most disingenuous people I've seen on the internet by far are the ones who try to tell you that, like, Sony is in a very bad position right now. It's like you literally don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm not trying to be confrontational, and I know that a lot of this shit is just rage bait, but you don't know what you're talking about. You are objectively wrong on multiple fronts. And if they try to explain themselves, do you know what they do? And I've noticed this as well, and I know you guys have seen this too. When people try to explain, like, okay, tell me, how is PlayStation in a bad position? It just turns into, well, they didn't do this, and that. It's like, those all sound like hyper-specific things that you want. Why don't you list the things they did do instead? And they don't. They don't list the things that they do. And if they attempt to, they completely downplay it. Like, it's just been nothing but sequels. Like suddenly sequels are a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, God of War Ragnarok just wasn't as good. Sorry. And it's cool to dislike Aloy now, by the way, and dislike Horizon, because that was never good either. Ratchet and Clank, we need new IP. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, this is what I'm saying, where it's, and again, I think that, I'll tell you, listen, this is the expectation that Sony created for themselves. Like, it is literally suffering from success, where it's like if I were Sony, I would honestly have to ask, why do people seem so disgruntled when we basically just gave them more of what they liked? Well, think about it. Sony, did you look at your run? Like, dude, 2015 Bloodborne, 2016 Uncharted 4. Okay, Uncharted 4 sequel. Okay. 2017, we're announcing Ghost of Tsushima. Oh, we announced Days Gone. That's 2 new IP. Oh, and let's throw Horizon Zero Dawn in there. That's 3 new AAA IP. That's 3 new AAA IP, dude, in just a couple of years. In just a couple of years. And some of those are some of the most beloved IP underneath PlayStation. These games were announced 2016, 2017, and they released in 2017, 2019. And that's what I'm saying, like, dude, the expectation right now, given the same time period, is like what people do, even if it's on a subconscious level, man, what people expect from Sony right now is, well, there should be at least 3 new AAA IP I know about. And I can't tell you you're wrong, because that's where we were this time last generation. So actually, I would turn to you and say, you're right. And that's why we're having this conversation. And that's why I'm sitting here basically saying, we got to be getting close. Because it's one of two things here. It's either Sony is just planning to give up after this year and say, you know what? Sorry, guys, we have no new games. We have no new IP. We're done. We're packing it up. We'll see you next generation. Or they're going to come out and they're going to say, all right, the moment you've all been waiting for, we're going to start talking about these games that have been in development for many years that you've been waiting patiently for. Starting with Naughty Dog, starting with Santa Monica, whatever it might be. Starting with Ghost of Tsushima 2. And granted, that might not be new IP, but still, a game people absolutely want. And I just think it's, when you look at this stuff, you can begin to understand, psychologically speaking, why it's like, man, I don't care about Horizon no more. I don't care about God of War no more, bro. I don't care about this stuff. You don't care about the stuff right now because you've gotten a lot of it, and you're eagerly awaiting the newer stuff, and that's okay. But you can't. I just feel like the part where it becomes disingenuous is when you can't separate that, like, just like the understanding that, all right, we've gotten a lot of great shit, but I feel like it's time for something new, and that has to come soon. If you can't separate that from, like, not like, you can't twist it into Sony's done bad this gen. Sony hasn't done anything good. It's like that's not true. Like, I'm sorry if I sound like PlayStation Defense Force, but it's just not. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? Like, who else has been matching what Sony's been doing this gen? I was just a quite like I'm not trying to sound like the fan. I'm just wondering, like, I mean, somebody might say like Nintendo, but even then, that's a difficult comparison only because Nintendo is so dramatically different. It, like, that does feel like comparing apples to oranges. So I don't know, man. I was about to say I don't know what people expect, but that's wrong. I do know what people expect, and that is the problem. And so the only question that remains at this point is, Sony, you know what the expectation is. We're waiting. We're gaming while we're waiting, but we're still waiting. Your frustrations with that game development cycles are too long all around. Well, here's what's going to be so fascinating too. I'm going to read the rest of these chats. I just want to make this final point here. What's going to be so fascinating to me is, I think for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, I'd say 2 years, but especially the last year or so, there's been this hyper fixation, understandably so, on, I'm tired of these big ass games, dude. Look at what's going on in the industry. These game cycles they're lasting too long. The dev cycles are too long. These games are too big. We don't need them to be that big. And I get that, but I'm dying to know, when we finally see these games, are people still going to be saying that? Or are they going to be in awe of what they're seeing? Where they're like, holy fuck. I don't know what I said before, but none of that matters now, because look at this. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, it's one of those things where it's when you're sitting there hungry for the main course, and you really like been waiting. It's easy to say some some shit, man, when you're irritable. I'm just curious. Like, I'm curious to know if, when we do see Naughty Dog's next game, when we see Santa Monica's new project, Sony Bend, Blue Point, even games coming from Media Molecule, studios like that, like, I'm just dying to know, like, what are the reactions going to be? Are people still going to be like, this ain't worth it? Because listen, they could be. And if that happens, that's going to be super fascinating. If people walk away from these reveals being like, we waited like 8 years for that, well, that doesn't feel worth it at all. Now, that would be a hell of a scenario. And if I were Sony, I'd be like, oh shit, did we mess up? That's exactly what I'd be thinking to myself. But something tells me that that's not what's going to happen. Although there could be massive drama around some of these games for other reasons, but something tells me that that's not what's going to happen. Something tells me that, at least for some of these games, maybe if not some, most of them, the conversation is going to be about how fucking insanely good they look and how excited people are to play them. That's what I think is going to happen. Let's see. We have T.O. Music and Meditation Says MBG, will you be picking up a PS5 Pro right when it releases? I'm going to wait to get one until Death Stranding 2. Always enjoy catching up on PlayStation news with you, man. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the streams and the content. The answer to that is absolutely yes, as long as I'm able to. Assuming there isn't going to be some kind of like massive issue getting my hands on a PS5 Pro. Yes, my goal is to get a PS5 Pro as soon as it launches. I'm very excited for this console. Like, I know that there's a lot of negativity, and I honestly just don't give a shit about it. I'll be real. Like, I'm not to say that I don't hear what people are saying. Like, I hear you. Doesn't apply to me. Like, I'm super excited for the Pro. I love the idea of I've been gaming on I put thousands and thousands and thousands. I don't know. I'm like curious if I put over 10,000 hours. So many thousands of hours into playing on my PS5 and enjoying it. I've gotten so much use out of it. Like, dude, if my PS5 broke today, which hopefully it doesn't, but if it did, I couldn't even be upset. I'd be like, dude, I know that this console, I've only had it for like nearly 4 years, but the amount of use I've gotten out of it, it's like, I can't say I didn't get my money's worth. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I've gotten well over $500 of worth. Like, it's insane. So, yeah, my PS5 is going to break today now that I've said that. Oh my God, could you imagine that? How crazy would that be? I go to like turn it on later tonight. It just like doesn't work. But that's why it's like, look, I've enjoyed my PS5 so much. It is so easy to just be like, oh yes, I'm going to get a Pro. I'm ready to upgrade. And I know that there are like people who are like seriously against the Pro, where they're like, you couldn't pay me. Like, okay, I get it. You don't have to buy it. You'll be just fine. It reminds me that people were like, just get a PC. Like, you get a PC. I'm going to get a Pro. You get a PC. And we can both be happy. You see how that works? It's pretty simple, you know? But yeah, in all seriousness, I will be trying to get a Pro when it launches. I'm going to be super excited for it. And I'm trying not to like think about it too much when I'm having these conversations anymore, because like we have to be just a matter of weeks away, like 7 or 8 weeks away from the PS5 Pro reveal. And that doesn't feel like a super long time. And I'm really hoping that Sony does it justice, man. Like, I'm going to get the Pro no matter what, but I hope that this PS5 Pro event can kind of serve as a like kind of moment we've all been waiting for type of situation when it comes to the presentation that they're going to put on. We have Reptar Runs Free with a super chat saying, anyone else see Blue Point's Christmas card that hinted at their new project and nothing ever came of it? I'm crossing my fingers for BP Castlevania, or like Blue Point Castlevania. Well, it's worth noting that Konami, like there were multiple leaks that were right about the Silent Hill and Metal Gear projects, and in those leaks, apparently a new Castlevania project was in development, like a new AAA Castlevania game, but they never said who was working on it. Is it possible that Sony and Konami partnered and they're going to make a Castlevania game? Maybe. Do you guys remember when Eric Williams, the director of God of War Ragnarok, was asked if he had a chance to work on any game? He said it would be Castlevania. Did you guys know that Blue Point Games co-developed Ragnarok, or it was a support studio for Ragnarok? Did Eric Williams basically tell us that Blue Point is working on a Castlevania? No, I'm kidding. I'm connecting dots where I don't think there are any, but no, that would be super interesting. This is why I say, like, yeah, it's a huge reach. It's beyond a reach. But you guys love that, you know. That's that. We're going down the conspiracy rabbit hole here. I mean, when it comes to Blue Point, I'll be honest, I'm just trying to keep my mind as open as I possibly can, because it seems clear to me that it doesn't seem clear. They literally said, we're not doing a remake or a remaster. So for me, that's like, okay, the sky's kind of the limit here. Who knows what they could be doing? I don't want to be disappointed by it. I'm a little bit afraid of that. I'm a little bit afraid that whatever they announce, I'm going to be slightly underwhelmed by. And that's why I'm trying really hard. Because there's been so many years of like, oh, they're going to make a Castlevania, they're going to make Metal Gear, they're going to make Bloodborne or something. And I don't think they're, like, truthfully, I don't think they're working on any of these things. And so because of that, I want to keep my mind as open as I can and be prepared for anything and just let it speak for itself. And whenever I see that logo pop up on screen and we know we're getting a new reveal from them, I want to just empty my mind, zero expectation, and just let what they have to show hopefully excite me. We have a Treble Champ here with a super chat saying, bro, you have to try the first Descendant. It's free to play, done right. It is nice and chill and to chip away at. Have you given it a go? I actually did. Yeah, I did play it briefly, and I have to admit, like, it's, once again, it's not that I didn't like it, like, this is a bad video game. It's just more like, I know what this game is, and I played this game quite a few times. Like, I played games so similar to this that it seems like whatever it's doing well. I'm not in the mindset for a looter shooter right now. I'm not. To be honest, I don't know exactly what I'm in the mindset for right now. I'm feeling a little bit awkward, and this happens to me sometimes where I get in these awkward phases of gaming where I just don't quite know what I want to play. And I hate it because I just feel like I just begin to, like, obsess over, like, what do I want to play? And the answer takes time to present itself, but I did at least try it, and I kind of realized, like, yeah, this isn't for me. But I heard it is pretty good, and that's good because I was kind of thinking, you know, based off of everything I'm seeing of this game, the first Descendant, it looks like it could be, like, really bad. You know, like, it does look very generic, and because of that, maybe it could just be a very bad game. But yeah, when I played it, I'm like, oh, it plays fine. You know, like, I think some people are definitely going to enjoy this. So, Treble Champ, I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it, bro. Any thoughts on the future of the Callisto Protocol? I don't know if they're doing anything more with it. The only thought I have is I don't expect to hear about the Callisto Protocol ever again. That's all I got. Yeah, I think it's like a dead IP. Maybe we'll see. Rich Rod, you're saying Blue Point Gangstas equal Uncharted Gangstas. Book it. So Rich Rod is subscribing to the theory that Blue Point Games is working on something related to Uncharted. Yeah, I could see that. I've talked about that too. I absolutely could see that. Again, I'm trying not to lock myself in. You know what I mean? I'm trying not to lock myself in that could be Uncharted, could be God of War, could be something ridiculously different from either of those things. But Rich Rod, he says, lock it in, Uncharted, Blue Point Gangstas. George A with the $2 chat. He says, Sony won in sales to Xbox. They're not worried. I do agree from a hardware, like, console sales perspective. I think Sony is probably viewing it from, we have to do what we need to do to keep selling consoles, but not to, you know, we don't have to worry about Xbox catching us in the console race. So I do agree with that. However, it's worth noting that Sony does still have a wider view of gaming. Sony's view of gaming is not too far off from Microsoft's. Like, you know how Microsoft wants to be everywhere and get everybody involved? Believe it or not, Sony does have that exact same mentality, but the biggest difference is the way in which they're going to achieve that. Microsoft believes they're going to achieve that with a service that they call Game Pass, and they have the money to make that happen, even if it's by brute force. Sony is basically the complete opposite. Sony wants to be everywhere eventually, like, long run, and they want as many people engaged with the PlayStation ecosystem as humanly possible. But they want it to be on a level, they want it to be on in their way, where it's like, the expectation is you're going to have to buy video games. You know, you're not renting games, you're not subscribing, and you can if you want, but, like, if you want, like, the general expectation is we have a storefront, the expectation is to buy games. Everything is kind of supplementary to that. So I do think, in a sense, Sony is still competing with Microsoft on that level. I mean, that's why we're seeing a game like Horizon Lego Adventures going to Switch, but not Xbox. You know, it's it's something that Sony, I think they're still competing with them, but I just think that they have two very different approaches. But yes, I will also say the fact that the PlayStation console is still selling so well is what gives Sony pause. Sony's going to hesitate to hit the ground running as fast as they can to be everywhere. We have Ragu Bagu here. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying it's irritating when people think Sony will be complacent because they're ahead. They still have a business to run, profits to make, and studios to pay for. Yeah, the biggest thing that the biggest blind spot that people have when they buy into that notion, because I get it. Like, I worry sometimes as well. Like, I don't want to see Sony become complacent or make dumb mistakes because they feel no pressure. It's important to understand that the biggest pressure is their shareholders, dude. You know, like, the biggest pressure was never actually Microsoft. There were times where Microsoft was applying a lot of pressure, but really Sony is beholden to their shareholders, just like Microsoft is. And the way it usually goes is if the shareholders are happy, then things are okay. If the shareholders are happy, there's going to be more investment into the company. If the shareholders are happy, it usually means we're making enough profit. We're making good enough profit to keep them happy, and that's really all that matters. And it's just it's a cycle that just keeps repeating, and it works, right? But it all comes down to, what is it that the shareholders want? Well, the shareholders want growth. They want profitability, and they want growth. And you're absolutely right in that no matter what Microsoft chooses to do, that is the single most critical aspect of Sony's business from the executive point of view, where, okay, regardless of what Microsoft is doing, what the competition is doing, what do our shareholders expect? Your shareholders expect growth and profitability. And so, yeah, that's a constant mandate, dude. I guess the idea is the less competition there is, the easier it will be for Sony to achieve growth and profitability with minimal effort. If there's not a threat next to them saying, well, we're trying to achieve the same thing, the fight doesn't have to be as intense. And I agree with that. But I don't know, man. That's a tricky one. That is a tricky one, because I've talked about this before, but absolutely, you talk about the idea of playing 4D chess. One of Microsoft's 4D chess moves is, we'll just let Sony wreck themselves. We'll just let Sony make their own mistakes, and we don't have to do. All we have to do to make that happen is stop competing with them. Think about it. If you're Microsoft, you're like, listen, we can buy our publishers. We got Game Pass. We got the backing of all of Microsoft, the richest company in the world. We're good. Sony, you got the console. You won the console race. You do your thing. We're going to do our thing over here. There is a level of, what are the chances that Sony will, Sony's going to be taken out by their own arrogance. It's kind of understandable why, somebody might think that, because, well, we saw that with the PS2 to the PS3. But I do think Sony is different these days. I don't think Sony's that same company. And I think the reason why Sony's different is because their ambitions are very different from what they were in 2005 and 2006. The ambition, that's why I'm trying to say, like, Sony's ambitions are basically the same as Microsoft's. But the delivery, the execution on that ambition is where it changes dramatically. And so, as long as that ambition remains the same, I do think Microsoft, and one day I think eventually Nintendo will become more of a direct competitor as well in this instance. As long as that remains the greater ambition, the competition will persist. Because we can't forget. This is why I try to tell people, like, Microsoft does a very good job of convincing people that they're on your side, the consumer side. And granted, they do make moves to do that, right? Like we're putting Call of Duty in the Game Pass, undeniably pro-consumer, right? But we also have to think, okay, what's the long-term play here? The long-term play is the same as every other business. Numbers, volume, money, all of the money, as much of the money as we can get. It's all about strategy. It's all about, if there are 10 different ways to go about extracting money from a customer, what's the best way to do that? What's the best way that leaves everybody happy? The business, the shareholders, the consumer. That's the trick. That's what makes running a business so hard, especially when you're talking about, international companies like Sony and Microsoft, where it's like, shit's hitting the fan economically. I don't envy their jobs. But I think that's just kind of something that some people do tend to forget, is that regardless of how much of a fan you are of either company, regardless of how appreciative you feel about, man, what a great deal, that's fine and that's good. But just don't ever forget that they are a business and they want your money. They want you forever is what they want. They don't want you to ever go away. They want you to be a paying customer for the rest of your life. And that's fine. Again, that's not a bad thing. If they are providing you with something that makes you want to be a paying customer for life, then they won and you won as the customer. But I try to remind people that you can't get too comfortable no matter what you're engaged with. Or let me rephrase that. You can't find yourself being too caught off guard if a company decides, you know what, we need more money from you. When that is a thing that happens time and time again across like all industries. But I guess I'll be more clear about it. The day is going to come where Microsoft is going to ask for more money from their customers. That day is not today. That day is probably not tomorrow. It's probably not this year. Might not even be this generation, but that day will come. And there will be people who are going to act like, whoa. And that's what's going to be awkward, where it's like, guys, this was always going to happen. This was always going to happen. And the thing I want to know is when that's going to happen with Sony again, because Sony did that by, $70 games. We're not putting our games day one onto PlayStation Plus Extra. So it's like, okay, that's cool. I get it. But yeah, I think you're correct there. I'm going a little long-winded here, but I do think that when Microsoft does ask for more money, yeah, I don't think people are going to be upset. I think Microsoft is truly, they're all in for the long game, dude. They're playing the long game. And Sony obviously knows that. But Sony can't play the long game like that, dude. That's the difference. Sony can't play the long game like that. Sony needs to be a little bit more rapid response in how they have to be a little bit more assertive, I guess you could say, in their approach to their business, because, well, I mean, it's worked for them. That's important to point out. It's worked for them up until this point, and there's really no sign right now, and this is like the most important point of this conversation. There's no sign right now that it will stop working for them. So I'm not here to say that that's necessarily the most pro-consumer thing, but, it's, again, if I felt upset about Sony's business model, if I felt like, Sony, I really don't want to pay for your games. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of paying full price for your games. Everything feels like a ripoff. Everything feels anti-consumer. If I felt that way, I would go somewhere else. I would go to PC. I would go to Game Pass. But I don't feel that way. And it seems that a lot of people don't feel that way, because the numbers still show that Sony's way is working. And the numbers show that Microsoft's way is not working as well. But let's see. Let's see what Call of Duty and Game Pass does. Anyway, sorry about that super long-winded answer there, but I'm kind of at that point of the stream where, I can go on for like 15 minutes with one super chat. Um, we have OK here, remember for 10 months, saying PlayStation has enough momentum and normie success to cook their new IPs until after GTA 6 into the PlayStation 6. Small TOUS. What does that? What does that stand for? Fall show with Wolverine. I know you're like, I know you're abbreviating games here, but for some reason I can't. I know it's Death Stranding 2 Fair Games. MARAT. But I guess what you're trying to say, yeah, we've had this conversation, okay, and I'm really curious to see if you're right about this. We're gonna know. We're gonna know. I think this is the year we find out. It could be we don't find out until next year. Oh, you said a marathon. Okay, thank you. Well, you know what? Basically, the question is, once again, is Sony just going to coast? Essentially, what you're describing is Sony coasting for the rest of the generation because they can afford to do so, because they already have games laid out. Like, hey, listen, this year you're getting Astrobot, next year you're going to get, Marathon and Death Stranding 2, and then after that you're going to get Wolverine, and then maybe we close out the gen with Ghost of Tsushima 2. Like, it doesn't even sound bad, you know? It doesn't sound bad. And fair games, and there's probably other like partner games and stuff that we haven't seen announced yet, partner exclusives. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's interesting. I mean, not to, again, I'm not trying to pull Microsoft in here like needlessly, but I do think it's relevant to what you're saying. Where it's like, if you look at that Microsoft show, I think it's safe to say that one of the, if not the biggest game they showed was the new Gears of War, right? What's so crazy is, they didn't give a year or anything, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. They didn't give a year for that game. And the rumor is it's targeting 2026. And the rumor also is that Microsoft's next gen console is going to be 2026. And so it's kind of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if that turns out to be true, Microsoft has kind of shown, like, they're the first one kind of coming out being like, we can show you a game that's actually a next gen game, and you'll be excited for it. Like, we're going to show you some games we got coming now, right? Like Microsoft is going to have South of Midnight, Fable, assuming like Fable doesn't get delayed or something. Fable, I'm drawing Doom, right? What I know, I'm drawing a blank. I know there's a couple more, but essentially, like, Microsoft kind of laid out, like, here's the rest of 2024, here's 2025, and we're not really going to tell you what's, like, we showed you some stuff that's probably going to be 2026, but we're not really going to tell you what it is. And I just think that's interesting, because I could see Sony essentially following that same path, where, for example, if we do get a big showcase in September, Sony will be like, okay, here's some 2020, here are your 2025 games. And you're going to see a few things here, not many, but just a couple, maybe one or two things that are going to be 2026. And that could be the remainder of the gen, dude. But I don't know. Would Sony be, I guess what I'm trying to say is, would Sony be willing to start showing off PS6 games? I don't think so. I think we did get a PlayStation 6 game announcement with Kojima, with Fizzant, but I think we're too far out, man. Like, I do think the PS6 is coming after the next generation Xbox, and I think that, I don't know. It's impossible to predict, man. Truthfully, like, as much as I talk about it, as much as I think about it, it's impossible to predict, because who knows what Herman wants to do, bro? Who knows what Hideaki Nishino wants to do? Like, for all I know, they might be like, yeah, we're going to start showing PS6 games as soon as humanly possible. Why not? They might have that approach. I don't know. They might not. They might feel the opposite. They might feel like, we're not showing any PS6 games until we do the PS6 event. I don't know. The way Jim Ryan did it was pretty. That's how it was. The way Jim Ryan did it, as far as if I'm remembering correctly, is it was all about PS4 up until the moment we got that PS5 event. Like that PS5 event in June of 2022 or 2020 was the moment where it's like, now you're going to see PS5 games for the first time. So they could follow that again. And okay, with another super chat, thank you, buddy, saying Microsoft needs an onslaught of games to live. PlayStation does not. Very, very good point. Yeah, I keep forgetting that. Ironically enough, I keep forgetting about Game Pass, dude. You are right about that. Like, I do think Sony does need games, obviously. Like, I don't think anybody would say PlayStation doesn't need games. No, they do. Like they're going to need them this year. They're going to need them next year. They're going to need them every year. PlayStation's going to need games every year. But I guess what you're trying to say is like the key word is onslaught, right? Like we don't need to convince you to stay subscribed. You know, we're not trying to feed a service and grow that service. We're trying to convince you to buy a PS5, and once you buy a PS5, you'll likely stay here for a little while. It buys us some time. Yeah. That's true. It's interesting. It's crazy to think, though, is you wouldn't know that, right? You wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that Sony isn't feeding a subscription service because, dude, Sony has had an onslaught of games. That's the irony of it. I'm not saying they're all coming from their studios, but, like, it brings us back to that kind of conversation of, like, well, how many games is... When we look back at this year, how many exclusive games will Sony have released? Like, console exclusives. A lot. All right, boss. All right, I'm going to break my rule here. Normally, I don't feed boss any treats until we hit 25 members. We're at 14, which is still good. I appreciate that. But he's getting extremely antsy, so I'm going to give him a little bit. All right? Break my rule. You gotta move. You gotta let me get to the snacks, bro. God, dude. All right, we'll feed the beast. He's waited long enough. He's been pretty good. All right. There you go. Try not to... He hasn't had any dry food today. Putting that out there. So he's got more room for snacks. Trying to be more mindful. Boss was already licking. He got gluttonous. Dude, he would eat... I'm convinced he would eat that whole bag. He would make himself sick. And OK drops another membership gift. Dude, thank you for that, buddy. You just brought us up to 15. So, guys, we are 110 bomb away. 110 bomb. OK sets it up. Or 2 5s. And we can hit that goal. But, boss, I just want boss to know that I appreciate his patience. I think he's been good for most of the stream. He was only bad for like 3 times, like 3 moments where he jumped up. What? How are you done? I gave you a decent amount of snacks right there, bro. This can't be good for you. Holy shit. How is he? He's just staring at me like, that's it. He's crazy, dude. Listen, I'm only giving you a couple more, man. Just a couple more. That's it. He gives me like the sad cat eyes too. Like, that's it? Like, yes, man. By the way, guys, do me a favor and hit that like button for me if you could. We're sitting at 241 likes. Really helps the stream out. Really appreciate everybody who contributes by hitting the like button. It definitely helps. Don't you jump over here. I gave you your snacks. Leave me alone. Don't jump. I love how I try to be nice and he becomes more chaotic, bro. I'm trying to be nice, boss. And Shems comes in. Shems drops a 5 bomb. He answers the call. He says, we got to get to the 25. Love to see it, Shems.
Enough from me.
Let me give you Jim Ryan for that one. I feel like we've been talking about Jim Ryan today. Shems brings us up to 20. Guys, we are just 5 away. 5 more members away from hitting the goal. Good stuff, bro. Good stuff. Appreciate all the support you guys continue to show the channel. I know there's not a whole lot going on right now in the realm of like PlayStation news necessarily, but you know, we keep the conversation flowing here. I know you guys appreciate it. Let's see. But yeah, just to close out with the final super chat that I was answering there, it's true. Sony does have a lot to rely on. Sony can rely on a lot of third-party games, a lot of partner games, and obviously we've talked about it many times, and we will continue to talk about it. GTA 6 is going to be something that Sony can basically look at and not say, hey, we can be complacent now because of GTA 6. No, but just like strategically thinking, like how much can GTA 6 benefit us? Boss, how are you up here, man? No. All right. I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand how I give this cat snacks, and to him it means now I'm gonna go loco, bro. Now I'm gonna start destroying shit. You need to get down. You gotta get down. Don't stop. Hold on, I'm having some difficulty here. I have a bunch of shit on my desk, and he's like actively trying to knock it off. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. I don't understand him sometimes, man. Jakey Stee comes in and says, sup, boys and girls. Wavy AS. What is up, Jakey Stee? Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Saying I reward bad behavior. No, dude, it was the opposite. He was chilling. You guys saw before I gave him his treats. He was just chilling peacefully. I was like, you know what? He's waited like 2.5 hours. I'll give him some. And as soon as I give him some, that's when he starts misbehaving. I'm just so confused. I don't understand. Like, I thought that would have relaxed him even further, or just made him happy. Unless that's his way of expressing he's happy. His way of expressing he's happy is by destroying my office setup here and my desk and everything. All right. Maybe they get him hopped up. Yeah. I'm starting to think that's what's going on. I wanted to mention this to you guys really quick, though. You know, we're on the topic of Sony showing off games and whatnot. There's this article from Gaming Bolt. It says it was recently confirmed that PlayStation will be returning as a general exhibitor to Tokyo Game Show this September for the first time in 5 years. And speculation has suggested that, among other things, the company will be offering another look at Death Stranding 2 on the beach at the event, given that it's currently its only major first-party release lined up for next year. Interestingly enough, in fact, it seems like director Hideo Kojima himself might be indicating the same. Taking to Twitter, Kojima recently shared a poster for Tokyo Game Show 2024, accompanying it with no caption whatsoever. Clearly, Kojima wants us to keep an eye on the event, though the question remains why exactly that is the case. His studio, Kojima Productions, says on Twitter that it will be selling merch and goodies at the TGS booth this year. So just wanted to throw that in there. I don't know if I mentioned this already. Did I mention this to you guys? I can't remember if I covered this. I see we have Michael Cintron coming in, dropping the 10 bomb on you guys. Michael Cintron doing some heavy lifting today, taking us up to 30 members. I need to see some W's flowing in the chat for Michael.
Holy shit.
He crushes the goal, bro. Michael, thank you so much for that. Let me update this goal so you can see where we're at. That's awesome. Good stuff, dude. Oops. Hold on. All right, so just like that, we go from 20 to 30 members thanks to Michael's 10 bomb. You guys are awesome. I appreciate all the support, all the membership gifts, all the super chats. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation thus far. I thought it was a pretty good conversation. I think I've said just about everything I could possibly say regarding this conversation. I mean, I know a lot of it is stuff we've talked about already, but you know, I've just been seeing a lot of discourse recently. I think that's kind of what inspired me to want to talk about this specifically, focus on the new IP, where are the new games. I've been seeing a lot of discourse. Where are the trophies on the top of the screen? Are they not there? On my end, they're there. Guys, can you see the top donors from last week displayed at the top of the stream? They should be there. Heatwave, you're saying you played Rebirth for over 130 hours? Damn. It's a lot, dude. You guys are saying you can see them. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's getting cut off for you on your whatever device you're watching the stream on. Maybe you have it like zoomed in or something. Everybody's saying they're there on my end. Oh, you okay. Okay. Got you. Got you. So I have a I might save this for another conversation. Scratch what I just said. What I will ask you guys, this is just a bit of a bonus thing here. Did you guys see that it was basically confirmed recently that GTA 5 story DLC was actually scrapped for like in favor of GTA Online? Like, I feel like we suspected this for a long time, that GTA Online was like a cash cow, and they like were like, yeah, we're not doing any single player DLC. Apparently it was actually confirmed, like officially, which is really depressing. What do I think about Avowed? You're saying you think it looks like a mid RPG. I have no interest in Avowed, truthfully. It doesn't look like horrible or anything. It's just not. It just doesn't seem like my kind of game. You're saying that is old news. I don't know that it's old news. Maybe it is. Yeah, I don't know that it matters. It's just like one of those things where it's like, oh, kind of suspected that. MBG doesn't like Western games. No, I do like Western games. I just don't like Xbox games, bro. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm kind of kidding. I'm not too interested in most of what Xbox is doing. Like, I mean, they got some good stuff cooking. I just don't know that. I don't know. I just don't. As a platform, like, I don't have a You know what the thing is with Xbox is I don't have any real problem with like their games at this point, because like they did a big showcase and they have a lot to show and a lot coming. But like I just not ever going to invest in the Xbox ecosystem, man. I'm just like I don't want to, and they can't make me, no. But I I just feel like these days I really am at a point where it's gonna. I went and I played Hellblade 2 on PC, and dude, like I should have just waited. Like I fucked up. I That's how I view it. Like I'm not saying I like regret trying it, but I definitely should have just waited for this game to come to PlayStation because I really was not missing out on much. And I feel like that kind of sets the tone for me going like how I'm going to approach Xbox most of the time going forward. Not in like a, and just to be clear, because I know how the arguments go with like the, the platform slash console wars online. I'm not saying this in like a LOL, I'll just wait for your games. Like, no, I mean like literally I'm pretty comfortable where I am. Like, I'll just wait if they come eventually, and if they never do, well, I'll have to figure out how I'm. Maybe I will have no choice but to experience it. Boot it up on my PC or something. But, um, Hellblade 2 was like the first game from Microsoft in years that I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. I'll boot it up on my PC and play it, and I played through it, and I was just like, well, that wasn't worth it at all. Um, it's not that it was even like that bad of a game. It's just that it was not worth. Like I would have just rather waited. That's all it comes down to, man. Like Hellblade 2 is eventually going to come to PS5. I would have rather just waited till that got ported over. And I don't think they're going to do a physical version, which is really annoying because that would actually be a game I would like to have physically, but it would have just been better to do it that way. You're saying it wasn't that bad, was it, bro? I mean, it's just more like the experience itself was not ideal. Like there's a reason, like one of the reasons I don't game on PC, like I know you can get a gaming PC and just hook it up to your TV and use it that way, but I don't know, man. My PS5 is already hooked up on my TV. I'm not gonna take my, honestly, like with the way my setup is, I don't even have enough space for it. So I just don't prefer PC gaming in general. I don't prefer gaming at a desk. And like knowing that was the way I chose to experience that game, it definitely didn't help it. You know what I mean? Phil Spencer's a genius. Oh, that's coming from Xbox's King. Damn, Xbox's King stating Phil Spencer's a genius. I am shocked. You bought a powerful gaming laptop and hook it up to your TV? Okay, yeah, that's probably a lot more convenient because laptops are pretty slim these days. Yeah, like the PC I have now. Well, first off, I couldn't. I don't know. I guess like truthfully, if I really wanted to, I could probably buy like a really long HDMI cable and just kind of run it. That could work, but I don't care about PC gaming, man. I'm sorry. You're saying I'm so ignorant about PCs? I don't think I'm that ignorant, you know? There's definitely a lot I don't know, but I know I know enough. Like I know enough about PC gaming to know why it appeals to people. But for me, PC is, I would say, it's like if I have to, I will. Like if I have no choice, I will. That's how I view PC. If I have a choice, probably not going to. I don't like have a big problem with it. Like I mean, there are people that they definitely seem like they have an axe to grind with PC. I wouldn't say I'm one of those people. I don't have an axe to grind with PC. I just most of my experiences on PC have just never really been compelling enough to make me feel like, oh yeah, I want to stay here. That's all. There was this one game though. Um, I think it was shown at Summer Game Fest, Maybe you guys remember, it was like one of the first, I think, 5 or 6 games that was revealed, and it was this first-person zombie survival game. And dude, it looked really good. It looked like a first-person AAA version of like State of Decay, and I was like really liking what I was seeing. I'm like, this looks great, and it's like PC only. I'm like, damn. I don't know. Maybe I would try it. I don't even remember the name of the game though, but maybe some of you guys remember the game that I'm talking about. Okay, you're saying you'll always own an Xbox, PC, MBG. Embrace it. That's true. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I will say I was shocked at because it was my first time ever opening the Xbox app on my PC, and I was shocked that like, oh shit, like it's just literally an Xbox. It's the same UI and everything. And that was pretty cool. And I could see Sony maybe eventually doing something like that down the line. But yeah, I just like the PlayStation ecosystem, man. I won't lie. I'm too deep into it. You know, I'm too immersed in. I think what my biggest thing is with PlayStation at this point, like it sounds so weird, but it's just the truth. Is like, dude, it's trophy hunting, man. Like I'm at that point where if I were to play a game that is maybe lacking and I'm not like it's not the best game I ever played and it's okay. But if the trophies are attainable and like it has a decently obtainable platinum, that could be enough to keep me playing that game to get that platinum. That's how much I realize like I can't escape it, man. I'm at 40 platinums now. Just the other day, I thought about it. I saw that there's a sale going on. There's a sale going on with a lot of PlayStation games, like a summer sale. And I saw a couple of the games that were on sale were the older Telltale games, like The Wolf Among Us and the Batman game. And I'm like, they're like really cheap, like $5 or $6 or something, or like $10. And I thought about it. I'm like, dude, I could just buy them and platinum them. It's like 2 easy platinums right there. Go from 40 to 42. And I'm like, well, I don't know that I want that to be the only reason. Xbox is king. You're saying you watch all these YouTubers are coming back to Xbox. It's only a matter of time. I mean, yeah, I think that's undeniable for most people. Like, Xbox is going to have more games than they ever had before, but I don't know. The whole idea of coming back to Xbox, I guess it comes down to like in what form though. Like if somebody's buying Call of Duty this year on their PlayStation, like are they coming back to Xbox? In Microsoft's eyes, the answer is yes. But I think like general conversation, general viewpoint, people are probably like, no, I don't think so. Saying he's kidding. Yeah, well, probably. Jake Skew, a member for 14 months. He says, wow, 14 months. Keep the good work here. Member gifts send you something in your email. Hopefully it went through. I appreciate that, Jake Skew. Appreciate the membership. Oh, yeah, I see what you sent me. That's interesting. First FPS game really was not Doom or Wolfenstein. Yeah, I'll have to check that out a little bit later. Interesting. And Jake Skew, thank you for that, bud. You drop a single membership gift as well. Good stuff, bro. You just brought us up to
appreciate it.
31 members, guys. So here's what we'll do. Where are we at? So we're at the 2 hour and 54 minute mark. We're probably going to be keeping the stream going for a little bit longer. I know I've been slacking on the members lounges lately, so I do apologize for that. That's going to be corrected this week. So if you're somebody who's been waiting for like another members lounge, I will say, and I just have to say this for my own sake, the last stream we did we literally did a members lounge, but it was like not for members only. Anybody who watched the entirety of that stream, you definitely can attest to that. So we technically did do a members lounge. It just was just a regular. It was just a regular lounge, not exclusive. So that was like MBG's equivalent to Microsoft like bringing over Sea of Thieves to PlayStation. But this week we will be doing some more member stuff. So if you are a member, please look forward to that. But what we'll do here, because I'll probably keep this stream going for another 10 or 15 minutes or so, I'll just like announce the last call now. Anybody who wants to drop any more member gifts, anybody who wants to re-up their membership or drop a super chat, whatever it might be, any type of support, feel free to do that now. Yeah, sometimes we get like crazy member trains going at the end of streams. You never know. So, but Jake, thank you for that, buddy. Appreciate you guys getting us up to 31 members on the day. We have release. Okay. There was no spaces there, so I was struggling to put together your name. Release the Kraken. Says, my main problem with consoles gaming is being left behind when the new box launches. Imagine if you could access Bloodborne on your PS5. You can, though, right? Unless you mean, like, upgraded. Is that what you mean? Because you can play Bloodborne on your PS5 through backwards compatibility. And Jake Skew drops another gift. Jake, thank you so much, man. You just brought us up to 32 members on the day. So thank you for keeping the member train going, bro. Good stuff. Yeah, always a reminder. Single membership gifts, very much appreciated as well. I think I get what you're saying, Release the Kraken. You're basically describing how every time there's a new console generation, you're kind of limited in a sense. Where, like, if you want to play Bloodborne on PS5, you still have to play the base PS4 version like you can't get better resolution, you can't get better performance, can't get better anything. And the only way you can get that is you're at the mercy of a patch or a new version of the game released. And I get that. I think there's a huge reason why a lot of people choose PC gaming over console. I think that's a huge reason. And I think it's a good reason. Jay Shocker is saying you don't see it like that. I mean, I kind of don't either. So I guess it is a perspective thing. For most people, I'd say it's probably a perspective thing. It depends on your viewpoint of it. So we're saying people want to pop in Final Fantasy VII PS1 disc and they want it to run. Have I played Blasphemous? I've heard of that game. I never played it. Isn't that like a really gory game? It's like a gory Souls-like. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game. It's religious. A 2D Bloodborne. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen a few different games that are basically like Souls-born like titles, but 2D, different settings. What if Sony announces the PS5 Pro in a blog post? That would quite possibly be the single most disappointing thing Sony could may have ever done. I mean, we're like, that's like next level. Like, that's like a bra moment, man. No way. I couldn't accept that. I could not accept that. That would be so terrible. You're saying they will? Well, I don't know, man. I'll just say this. If they're scared, if Sony is afraid that they're going to get a bad reaction to it, they're going to get too much hate, they're not going to have enough games ready to show for it. Maybe. If they're like genuinely afraid that it could cause blowback. But I don't know. That's why I'm saying, like, dude, a PS5 Pro is going to be a harder sell than the PS4 Pro was for multiple reasons. That's why I think pairing the Pro reveal with a showcase, that's how you do it. I think if you do it that way, you're giving it the best chance to like have a positive vibe around it. And I think the Pro is going to need that positivity surrounding it, because I do think that no matter how excited somebody like me is for it, and many of you, I do think the general population is going to be like, like, why do I need this? And I just think have a showcase. So listen, if you're somebody, if you have people who are like, I don't want a Pro, the Pro is dumb, this is stupid, they won't care because they'll be too distracted by, oh, did you see all these games that were shown at the showcase? You get what I'm saying? Cover all the bases. Cover all the bases. A Sony show, then a blog post. Maybe they could do like a double feature. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how Sony handles the rollout of the PS5 Pro, because I could see it going, I hate to say it, but I could see them screwing it up. I could see it going poorly. But I don't know. They've had quite a bit of time to prepare for it. So I hope they knock it out of the park. Say, let's think about this realistically. I mean, the rumor is Microsoft is going to put out a next generation console in 2026, and Sony's going to put out their Pro next year. I mean, they're going to fall. Well, we have to consider, like, I don't believe at all, just to be clear, like, I don't think there's anything Microsoft can do. Except for one thing. And I've said this before, and I apologize if I sound like a broken record, but maybe some of you didn't hear this. The only thing that Microsoft could do to save their console, and when I say save, I mean like allow it to stand a chance, because I don't think it matters when their console comes out. I don't think it matters. I just don't think anything about their console matters, except for one thing, and that is unless they come out and they make the announcement, we are no longer putting any games on PlayStation or Nintendo. Like, they'll keep putting on PC, but no more. We're not putting any more of our games on the competition's hardware. If they were to announce that, then they might be able to get back in the race. But they're not going to do that. And so I firmly believe that it really doesn't matter what Microsoft does. Like, they could come out in 2026, have a big showcase, show off their new console, hype it up, show games off on it, and it's not going to matter. It's like, I just don't. I think maybe it'll matter for like a moment. Like, it'll matter for a moment where it's like, whoa, this is awesome. But then like the realization will kick in that like, wait, like this is pretty much the same, not the console itself being the same, but like nothing has really changed. And I don't know. I feel like with the PlayStation 6, I don't know. It really just comes down to how much of an emphasis Sony and Microsoft put on, like, you need to get this console to play our games, our new games. I think that's really what it boils down to, man. the Pro comes out next year and it's way less powerful than the next generation Xbox console, what do I think people are really going to support? Well, here's what could make things a little bit interesting. I don't think it's going to be a power thing. I don't think it's going to be that. Like, I think the next Xbox will obviously be more powerful than the Series X and the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. I think what's going to matter most are the new features. I think something like AI, right? How is AI going to be integrated into these consoles? How could it be integrated into it? I think there's just going to have to be more than just the power factor. And maybe an edge that Microsoft could have temporarily is like they kind of show some really unique features for this next generation Xbox that we've never seen on console before. I don't know exactly what they could be, but just shit we've never seen. And that doesn't exist on PlayStation 5 Pro. So it's like, okay, how much different do these games look graphically? Actually, not that different. But check out some of our next generation features. The next Xbox will have an NPU chip inside it. That's what I mean. But the whole thing that we'll have to keep in mind, and this will be looming in the background the whole time. Yep, exactly. PlayStation laughs in PS6. No matter how good Microsoft does, I'm not saying this in like a console war way. I'm just saying it's like, I just think this is the way it is, man. No matter how good Microsoft does with their next console, even if it's more powerful, if it's more advanced, if they do everything right, like it's not going to be enough to stop the train. Like that's the PlayStation 6, dude. Like, you know that meme of the bus sitting on the train tracks and then the train just like barrels right through it? Like, I could be wrong, but I feel like that's essentially what we're looking at here, man. Where I just don't know what Microsoft could do. I think their hands are tied. I think Microsoft, actually, you know what? I think Microsoft is doing exactly what they should be doing at this point in time. Microsoft is like, look, man, it's Game Pass. Like, Sony can have the console sales. Sony can do whatever they want. But you know what Sony can't say? Sony can't say, subscribe to our service for $11 and play Call of Duty. And that's powerful. That's a powerful move that, yeah, Sony can't say that. But, is that going to stop PlayStation? Probably not. I don't know. I did hear that rumor that apparently like Microsoft is going to be trying to launch the next Call of Duty like with the next generation Xbox. Now that could be something. Maybe. That's like the only thing where if they come out with like a next gen Xbox in 2026 and Sony's like not going to be ready for another year and they're like, here's the next Call of Duty running on the next generation Xbox, get it day one in Game Pass. That sounds pretty powerful. RichRod908 says Xbox needs to have respect and drop out Xbox wanksters. Well, Rich Rod, I think this is the perfect super chat to end this with. I don't think it would get any. I don't think this is it. This is perfect. Xbox needs to have respect and drop out Xbox wanksters. There we go, bro. Rich Rod comes in at the very end and just levels it. He just levels it all. He puts it all in perspective. There's no arguing with this. Those Xbox wanksters, bro. But guys, in all seriousness, I think this is where I'm going to bring this stream to a close. We are about to approach the 3 hour and 10-minute mark. I think this was a pretty good discussion. Again, I know it wasn't a whole lot of topics, and I know a lot of it is stuff we have discussed before. But I'm going to keep the content flowing here on the channel. And I do want to just give one more reminder that if you're somebody who's been looking forward to some members content, we will have more members content coming this week. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, that was a good conversation. And I do want to, before I head out, I want to extend a big thank you to everybody who helped support the channel and everybody who support the content. We're sitting at 32 members, which is awesome. Thank you guys for that. And got a pretty decent amount of super chats as well. So again, you guys are the sponsors of the channel. If it wasn't for that support, I simply wouldn't be able to do what I do here. So thank you so much for that. I also want to make sure to give a big shout out to Devil Shooter for doing the timestamps. He does a great job. If you see him in the comment section with the timestamps, give him some thanks. IP Gaming, no, we're going to do a members lounge on the next stream. So please look forward to that. We could be streaming as soon as tomorrow. So regardless, the next stream we're going to do a members lounge. I try not to do members lounges on Sundays. I try to just keep Sundays as just purely just streaming based on a topic or topics. But yeah, we will be doing a members lounge on the next stream. So please look out for that. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. If you are a member, you should get notified, by the way. I noticed that members do get notified when I create a members only stream, but turn on your notifications just in case. But guys, that does it. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their Sunday. I'm gonna, yeah, no deep talk today. We had enough on the last stream for that. Maybe the next members lounge we'll do some deep conversations. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'm gonna go probably chill out for a little bit and relax for the remainder of the Sunday. I'm pretty tired. I woke up pretty early today. So, all right, that does it. Thank you guys once again. And it's weird. I keep feeling like there's something I'm forgetting, but I'm pretty sure I covered all the bases. So that does it. Enjoy your day, guys. I will catch everybody in the next one. So until then, take care, guys.